Hello everybody and welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thank you for joining me live on Friday. That's right, I'm doing this on Friday now. My schedule is like all over the place, so I never really know what day it is. So thank you guys for checking in with me live on a Friday night, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome back. I see a couple people are hanging out in the chat. It's nice to see you guys. How is everybody doing? Happy Friday. Happy Friday. So this is going to be a bit of a, first run, giving this a go and seeing how this platform works for being able to answer live questions for natal charts, be that understanding a natal aspect or understanding a transit. Those of you guys who've watched my videos, you see me come on here weekly and I talk about the energy that's going on in the stars and how it's affecting everybody generally. But this is going to be more if you have a pressing question, if there's something that you want to better understand, maybe there's an aspect in your chart that you've never, really been able to understand, or perhaps you're going through a transit, or maybe there's just something happening in your life and you're like, Candice, what the heck is going on? That's why I am here. Hi, everybody. Hi, Gail. Hi, Observer. Hi, J-Lo. Lynn. Swats, driving and listening to you. Aquarius, waiting for love and exciting things this year. So here's how it's going to work, guys. Basically, all of these readings or any readings that we end up doing here tonight, it's going to be done publicly. Meaning we're going to go into a split screen. I'll be able to show you my software. If you have a question, I will need this information, and it's been pinned also in the top of the chat. So I'll need your first name, your exact time, date, year, and location of birth. We need that information to be able to understand your natal chart. If you don't have this information, don't worry, I'll be back. I'm gonna try to at least do one of these sessions once a month and be able to answer questions for people who cannot wait, because I have a pretty busy schedule. As it is now, I'm booking into August. Things are crazy right now in the skies. Between having like a Mercury retrograde and we're just coming off of this last eclipse, there's just lots of things that are going on. Hi from New Zealand. Hi Lynn, thank you. I'm glad I got it squared away. I'm looking forward to talking to you. I'm sure we're gonna chat soon about all kinds of magical things. All right, guys, so here's how it's going to work. If you want to be able to do this, you can do that through the super chat. You can also do that through PayPal. So you can see my PayPal link below, $40 for one question. I'll pull your chart up and we'll break it down live. This can also be a really interesting thing to just watch, right? To watch or to learn more about astrology so you have a better understanding of how things work. My goal is to really create this more as a platform for being able to teach people about astrology. Maybe you're kind of sussing this out and you're wanting to learn more about transits, or you're wanting to learn more about understanding charts. You may even see people who have similar charts to you. So those of you guys who don't know, your astrological chart is completely 100% given to you. You're not going to see anybody who has the exact same aspects that you have, unless they're born in the same place, the same time. Aside from being twins, and even twins charts have a lot of differences to them, you're not going to see the same situation play out at the same time as other people, unless you have that similar rising sign or you're born right along the same time and even the same date. But if you see me talking about somebody who may have the same rising sign as you, or maybe who, at least in terms of degrees, it can be really helpful to listen to these sessions moving forward. And you might find that there's somebody who's going through something that you're going through, and you have something in common, and you'll be able to kind of learn just through hearing me talk about it. Hey, Rob, it's nice to see you. Rob, my fantastic BFF, my assistant, is in the chat. He's watching. Nice to see you. Thanks for tuning in. So I am just monitoring the super chat, also monitoring the PayPal. So if anybody has any questions, let me know. First come, first serve. We will get started and start kind of analyzing these charts. If you are somebody also who has no idea what's going on in your natal transits, you just know that there is something up, something is changing, or you're feeling some kind of pressure, Probably the most interesting charts to really look at right now would be people who have mutable signs on an angular house. So if you have a Gemini, a Virgo, a Sag, or a Pisces rising, especially if you have any other of those placements being one of the mutable rising signs and you have other mutable placements, that I would be really interested in seeing, because that tells me that your life is quite active right now. Same thing with a lot of the fixed signs, you know, especially if you have any placements in Taurus or in Leo or in Scorpio or in Aquarius. A lot of things going on. Nobody's really getting out of the Thunderdome of June. You know, all the fixed signs are experiencing squares with the Saturn-Uranus square that's starting up right now. It's really, really, really affecting Tauruses. It's really affecting Aquariuses. And then we have the cardinal squares, which are just kind of, you're coming out of it. Actually, cardinal signs are, aside from the most recent Mars-Pluto opposition, the cardinal signs are actually doing okay. But I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but regardless of what sign you are, when we analyze and we look at a natal chart, what we're really looking at is you know, all of the different houses, and you're going to have a zodiac sign fall in each house. So for example, you might go, oh, well, you know, I'm just an Aquarius. I don't have any Leo in my chart, or I don't have any Taurus in my chart, but actually you do. Hi, Starry Ari. It's nice to see you. Natalie, if you look below, there is a link. It's also going across. We're going to pin it into the chat. So all I'll need you to do is send me that info. Here we go. We got number one, Swats. Swats says, born on 10th of February, 1986 at 3:10 a.m. in Fiji. Aquarius, Sun, Moon, Venus, Mercury, second house, wanting to move forward, waiting to know what comes. Thanks, a little lost. Well, thank you for kicking this off and getting us started, Swats. I'm going to start kind of building out your chart. Give me 1 second, and then I'm going to pull it up on the screen. I believe, are you the one who's driving? You are. Okay, cool. So just, you know your chart, your visual. This is kind of cool that we're getting a chance to connect this way. So February 10th, I'm going to start building out your chart. Give me 1 second. Uh, 1986. And that was at 3:10 a.m. Okay. L-A-U-T-O-K-A. L-A-U-T-O-K-A. Fiji. And did I read that correctly? You're in New Zealand. Just purchased. Thank you guys. I'll be with you shortly after, so just hang tight. Okay. Question and details. So let me make sure that I've got the correct time here and make sure that we've got the correct chart. Okay, so yeah, so just confirming what I have for you, Swats, is you have a Cap rising, the Sun, and all of those other placements. So should be 11 degrees Capricorn rising, Sun in Aquarius, and your Moon also in Aquarius in the second house, Moon, Venus, and Mercury. Wanting to know what will come, a little lost. Thank you, Starry Ari. If you want to give me your info, let me know. I still want to, I would love to look at your chart. I am happy to do so. So we will do it one by one. Swats, here's the deal. We can switch to this now, so you guys will be able to see the split screen. The outer wheel is the transit, so don't get lost, guys. This is how you start learning how to do transit astrology. The outer wheel is the transit, so we're going to pull that up so you guys can take a look and see what's going on. Cool, cool. So what can I say about this? Second house stellium in Aquarius puts a huge focus and an emphasis right now with Saturn going through your second house, where really what you're doing is you're building on your self-esteem. You're building on your security, your finances, your long-term goals when it comes to how you can build abundance, how you can be creative. You know, the second house in this chart is ruled by Uranus. Now, when you were born, you have Uranus sitting in the 12th. So there's some kind of aspects going on where you're working more on a spiritual or on an etheric level, and you're grounding out and making all of your ideas a reality. Of course, you'd be into astrology. I feel like this is part of the transit where you're starting to learn more about that, especially because you have a number of planets occupying the second house. So if we break it down planet by planet, the sun in the second house wants stability. It wants to own something, hold something. It wants to create abundance. It wants to focus on value. When it's in Aquarius, it's shared values, otherworldly thinking, and it's the ruler of your 10th. So something about Saturn coming up into your second house is almost preparing you for this reevaluation of your values, a restructuring of your finances, and helping you really kind of get everything in alignment. So that way, as you go further into the Saturn Aquarius transit over the next 2 years, and it dances with your sun and it dances with Venus, you're holding on very strongly to what you value in terms of transformation and in exchange, 8th house. As then Saturn comes up on your Venus next year, it's going to trigger all kinds of things that deal with your 5th house of creativity, children, and hobbies. So you're in a big prep year right now. You know, Saturn going through Aquarius, squaring off with Uranus in your 5th house, can have a lot of change in lovers, a lot of change in your hobbies, a lot of change in what you're really passionate about. I think it's kind of setting the stage for, if you wanted to start really applying all of your talents, building out what can be more of like a 5th house, working for oneself, building out something that's going to be more authentic, self-employed, creative. Now, one thing that I will tell you that's also going on is that you are getting triggered by all of these eclipses that have been happening in Sagittarius and also in Gemini. So you're coming out of the South Node dancing and moving in and out of your 12th house. Now it's going into your 11th. So one thing you will experience over the next couple of months, and really for the next 18 months, is a change in group dynamics, changes with friends, releasing and letting go of certain friends, adopting friends with younger people. Perhaps with the North Node going into your 5th house, you want to have 2 hobbies. You want to play around with hobbies, see which one works, which one doesn't. It's also a time where you might start really reevaluating your heart space and what you're really passionate about in terms of children, or even like dating, right? Like dating is like a big thing with the 5th house and falling in love. Now you have the North Node coming up on your Chiron, which is a lot about inner healing, heart healing, healing related to you know, self-expression. And so maybe you need to be around younger people. Maybe you need to be writing poetry. Maybe you need to be writing music. There's something here that's opening up that's making me feel like if you're not getting the love that you feel like you need from partnership, it's about giving it to yourself and healing this wound that you have with Chiron in opposition to Saturn, which is your chart ruler. I'm going to come in and out of the chat, so give me 1 second. So let me know if that kind of resonates with you, and what else I can shine a light on. But you know, the other thing that I'll tell you, just looking at this off the bat, is, you know, Saturn is doing a dance in Aquarius, and it's squaring off, and it's been squaring off with your nodes and also with your Pluto. So South Node in the 10th house is past lives revolving around having a lot of structure, having a lot of focus and emphasis on career, being in control of your career or holding on to your career too tightly. That North Node sitting in the 4th is putting focus and emphasis on home, roots, your family lineage, actually growing herbs, working with land. And so what's been uncomfortable since the beginning of the year is your chart ruler, Saturn, has come into a square with the nodes, saying you need to work with your hands, you need to work with the dirt, you need to make something, you need to be creative. It can be cooking, it can be working with jewelry, it can be working with gemstones, It can be also focusing on doing work that you really genuinely feel like you value. I don't know if that's something that resonates with you, but that's just some kind of something that I see in the chart. So on point. Okay, cool. One thing I'll also tell you is, next year, and this is a lesson, anybody who is astrologically savvy, if you have any planets between like 15 and 25 degrees of a fixed sign, so 15 degrees of Taurus, Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, next year Saturn will move up to these degrees, Uranus will move up to about 17 or 18 degrees, and the nodes move into the fixed signs. This will create what we call a fixed square, and it puts pressure and it asks us to change in places we're not used to changing. I look at your chart and I'm like, oh my gosh, this person can be so talented with aesthetics, so talented with design, so talented with cooking, with designing. Like, I'm wondering, like, what's your thing? So what is it that single for a while, wanting children? Okay, so the transits on your sun, which by the way rules the 8th house. The 8th house does deal with pregnancy. I see the 5th house being more about falling in love, flirting, having sex. The 8th house is like about that aha moment in pregnancy. So the sun transiting, Saturn transiting with your sun next year is going to be like, I got to make money, I got to have babies. Like, I want to be able to provide for children. And I feel like that's such a pivotal way of expressing your creativity, right? Because 2nd house is fertility, 5th house is about romance, 8th house is about that transformation and that merger with another person. So what Saturn is doing is it's bringing you and really making you realize what you value and what you need. And I feel like because your 8th house is other people's resources, this is about whether or not you're choosing partners who are financially stable, whether or not you're allowing other people to come in and affect whether or not you feel good enough. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, like, girl, you got a 2nd house stellium. Like, you are daddy. Like, you can make money. That's the thing that's funny about this, is like, you are kind of like breadwinner. So part of Saturn moving into your 2nd house can be that you connect with people who may not be as creative as you or may not be as financially successful as you, but they want to support your success. They want to support your growth. They want to help you make more money. And your soul chose this in this lifetime. So because you're so creative and expressive, and there is this focus and this emphasis on abundance, and abundance that you make that you also need, I would say keeping your standards very high, keeping your expectations very low, and realize that in the next year when you're dealing with romantic partners, in a way it's like not everything can be weighed in terms of value with dollar signs. Like, you might have somebody who comes in that doesn't have a lot of money, but they have land or they have a home or they want to build a family with you, and you're like, great, help me raise these babies, I got to get back to work. Something like that is going to happen, especially because Venus is so closely conjunct your sun. Venus being the ruler of your 5th house of children. So what will happen next year when Saturn shows up is you're going to be like, now is the time, got to have these babies, time to do it. And part of those squares that you'll be experiencing is how you make that change and that shift and that segue in your goals, and how that manifests really opening up and being able to build with another person. So it's very beautiful. And Jupiter is really helping you this year too. So don't lose sight of the fact that it is your Jupiter return. You do have Jupiter on your moon natally. Moon is the ruler of the 7th. I would say, go looking for partners that may actually live in a different country. You might meet people who are visiting in your home country. There may be a possibility of connecting and meeting with somebody who owns land in another country. So many planets conjunct in Aquarius is very interesting to me, because it's about these shared resources, like what's best for both people, right? And this will take about 2.5 years for you to fully go through. Like 2021 is like the dress rehearsal for the changes that you actually make next year. So just being that, you have your 7th house ruler of marriage conjunct Jupiter, ruler of your 12th house, he's probably in another country. You may have dreams about them before you meet them. They may meet you while they're traveling, or you may meet them while you're traveling. So stay really open. I would also say look at cities and countries ruled by Sagittarius. So they may be in Australia, they may be in Spain, they may be in parts of Asia, or even in Japan. That's somewhere else that you can look. That's where really going really deeper into reading can give you so much insight, especially like looking at the astrocartography. Like that's something I love doing with clients. I've got a lot of clients that'll be like, Candace, where am I going to meet somebody? And I can literally tell you where planetary lines intersect and where you're very likely to meet somebody. Also, in relocating and going places where you're more likely to experience happiness, relationships, all kinds of things that kind of stable out. So what you really want to watch for, and you're going to be feeling the pressure big time, especially when the nodes move into Taurus in the new year. It's going to start squaring your moon and your Venus and your Mercury, and you're going to start realizing like, oh shit, it's time for me to move. So start looking for people who might be in other places. Give yourself about 2 years to really allow this to unfold. I'd love to see you really showing your self-expression, your creativity, work with your hands, do something that you're gonna feel like has some kind of spiritual meditative quality, whether it's cooking or it's sculpting or it's, you know, designing jewelry, something like that is going to open up for you, and it's gonna be really beautiful. So I hope that that was helpful. I'm gonna get going on the next person, and I'm gonna move now, thank you Swats, I hope that was good, to L. Okay, L, I'm going to edit this chart, give me just a second. Looks like your birthday is March 13th, 1990. This is kind of cool being able to do it in this way. I've never done it this way. It looks like 0:42 a.m. So I'm going to assume that's 12:42 a.m. Can you just confirm so I make sure that I have the right time? And that was in St. Louis. So March 13th, 1990, 12:42 a.m. Okay, give me 1 second. We'll get your chart up, L. Okay. All right, cool. So just a general reading on the transits at the moment. Looks like you've got a Sagittarius rising and you've got a Sun in Pisces and a Moon in Libra. Don't get confused, guys. The inner wheel is the natal, the outer wheel is the transits. This is like transit Thunderdome, but this is how you learn. So those of you guys who are just tuning in, we are doing $40 questions in regards to transits or aspects about your chart. Feel free to hang out, listen. I think it can be really fun just to kind of hear, you know, how I analyze charts and what other people are going through. So Sagittarius rising, Pisces sun. Holy mutable square. I gotta ask you, how is that 7th house transit going for you? Tell me how that 7th house is going for you, that transit. You know, you've got Mercury going retrograde in your 7th house right now. That can be bringing up a reevaluation of relationships, where you've been in relationships, who you've been with, who you let go of. And your natal chart, Mercury is actually located in the 3rd. So there can be miscommunications with people, like not necessarily hearing back from people ghosting because of the square from Mercury retrograde to your natal Sun Mercury. In the 3rd house, it's like, you know, you reevaluating and being in your emotions and being in your feelings. And I see that square to the ascendant and also your 7th house is like having to wait, like not gaining clarity from people, not knowing which direction you're going to go in. Remember that mutable placements are about change and transformation, a segue from one energy into another. I love talking to people from 1989 and 1990 because you guys have all of those oppositions between the Capricorn stuff and also the planets in Cancer. So there's room here for healing, especially recently with Venus having conjunct your Chiron. Actually, right now, the moon and Venus are conjunct your Chiron. So the moon is bringing to your awareness an opportunity on a public platform to talk about and discuss some kind of issue that you need to heal. That seems to be important. You will come out of this, you know, square and all of these things that are going on into July. What can happen is you can hear back from people from the past, or you can be having dreams about people from the past. The truth is like nobody really knows what they want right now with this aspect. And there's a lot of sorting and sifting and trying to make room for the new. just recently, the other day, we had a new moon eclipse in your 7th house, setting the stage for new opportunities in relationships and planting new seeds in relationships. This trined your moon in the 10th house, so it's about taking charge and feeling like you're not letting other people run the show. It also trined your north node in the 2nd, giving you stability and helping you build on your own self-esteem and not feeling like you need to rely on other people's responses to give that to you. I'm very sensitive to the fact that Neptune is on your sun right now, and it makes you confused and sleepy and tired, very intuitive, very like, okay, why am I having dreams about people, but like they're not calling me back? Or like, why do I feel like they're thinking about me, but like I'm not hearing from them? I don't know if that's something you're experiencing. Yes, how to change a job, change of relationship, change of house. I mean, here's the deal. Basically, this is because the wheel of your chart is turning, and this is why I love showing charts, you know, live. I think it's such a fun thing to do, is when you have squares, especially in the angular houses. Granted, it's not angular in the 3rd, but your sun is very close to the IC, so it's helping you become more so aware of the bigger picture in communications. Like, it tells me that you want to have conversations with people about, here's my plan, here's where I see myself going, here's what I want. And there's no clarity right now. There's no clarity with Mercury going retrograde in your 7th. So we can't communicate, but there's a lot of feelings and there's a lot of emotions. And so the one thing I would say is the way out is Mercury trine your north node, ruled by Uranus in the 1st. It's learning to be indifferent and going, I don't give a shit if you come and go. It's not really about that. I'm finding my stability and my security right here. I think that's also equally important because Saturn's been dancing on your Venus. So it's really kind of helping you build on that sense of security within yourself and not feeling like you need validation from other people. And then Saturn is going to be conjunct your north node. So there's this real integration of getting super solid here in this next year, and learning to be more focused on oneself and not letting other people rock the boat. So that's really interesting. Also, you know, you're in a 30th, you're 30 this year, so you're in a 7th house year, according to annual perfection. So in Hellenistic astrology, annual perfections activates a house for each year that you're born. So your 7th house year is your 30th year. So that means when planets go through your 7th house, or when your 7th house ruler is active or goes retrograde, things happen. So basically, like, hello, you just had a Mercury, you know, conjunct the sun eclipse. It means that, you know, I'm wondering, did you hear from somebody? Was there some realization where you were like, they're not clear what they want, they're not getting back to me, they're full of shit? Like, is there anything like this that's happened because of the eclipse? Being that it's a new moon eclipse, it's actually setting you up for someone else, just so you know. My guess is perhaps maybe when Mercury is no longer going retrograde, it becomes conjunct. Yeah. But, oh, so you're 30, okay, you're 31 this year. So this was this last year. So it's your 8th house. So when you have transits in your 8th house or to your 8th house ruler, that's when change happens. 8th house Cancer is changing how you feel, changing where you live, possibly thinking about transforming your home. So when planets go through your 8th house, like they're getting ready to soon, and then when planets come up on your moon, change is going to happen. So I would say relationship stuff and like partnership stuff can actually get a lot better, or there can be a lot more clarity by about mid-July. And you really want to pay attention to when planets are coming up on your moon. So for example, when Venus comes up on your moon, that can manifest as new romantic partnerships, new emotional expressions. So that's going to be really strong for you the end of August. And then when Mercury and Mars come up on your moon, I think that's going to manifest more as like relationship things. So that's pretty strong. Early September, Mars will be conjunct your moon. And that may possibly be, you know, the start of new jobs, emotional shifts at work, transforming the way that you relate to other people, maybe meeting somebody through work, and that'll be at the end of September. Keep in mind that Mercury will go retrograde in Libra and it will be conjunct your moon. So there's some special action that's happening in mid-October where it's actually all funneling into your 2nd house and it's funneling into your 7th house, where you're more so in control of your career. You're more so in control of the future with relationships. You're feeling more solid and more stable. I would say this to anybody with Saturn going through their 2nd house. I would be like, okay, traditional astrologers are going to say, well, here's the deal. You got to like tighten the belt and like really focus on saving money. But it's more than that. It's, you know, the more that you put focus and emphasis on your self-esteem and building yourself up, you realize you're worth more. You ask more money from work and interactions professionally. You expect more from other people. The second house is not to be overlooked, not to mention the fact that you're out of your Saturn's return, but you're still kind of getting your ass kicked by Saturn. So thankfully, Saturn's going to be off of your North Node next year. And you wouldn't have these many transits unless it was really trying to bring out some kind of a talent or make you focus on like your self-esteem and your security. Saturn in the second house here can also make you like, okay, well, what do I value? Like, what am I worth? And the truth is you're worth quite a bit with all these planets sitting in your second house. This to me screams creativity because Mars is in this house, and Mars in the second house has a tendency to kind of burn through money. Mars conjunct Venus as well. So it's like if you need to make money and if you feel like you like to spend money, it's okay, well, what can we do creatively to bring more money in? That North Node in your second house is putting real focus and emphasis also on the fact that you're here to make your own money. You're here to build your own wealth. You're here to build your own way. So I see Patrick saying same, Saturn must be up this year, serious synchronicity everywhere. I mean, there's so much goodness that comes from your Saturn's return. And I think unlike other astrologers, I kind of feel like Saturn should not be feared. It's a little different for the people who were born in the late 80s, early 90s, because it wasn't just a Saturn transit. It was Saturn, it was Jupiter, it was Pluto. And Pluto's still dancing with your Saturn, by the way. Really helping you work out all this past life shit revolving around whether or not you're going to be abundant, helping you let go of all these toxic thoughts and like all of these things that are going on that hinder you from coming into your true power. So it's about not letting fear run the show. That's very important with a chart like this. Equally also, Saturn is going to be coming into a square with your natal Pluto, really making you aware of what your goals are. So you need to surround yourself with people who are creative, people who build you up, people who put more focus on group work and group collaboration. And unfortunately, the square to your Pluto is definitely going to show you some toxic friendships or where some of your goals are like outdated and it's not working anymore. So you'll see certain friendships that will fall off. If this were me, probably one of the more important transits that are happening right now is like Saturn transit your Venus and your North Node, and Neptune conjunct your Sun. You will benefit from doing journaling, from automatic writing, from sitting down and meditating, breath work, channeling, just so you become really clear and you can become really connected to source and download information and be aware of what actually needs to transform. And you'll be able to move out of fear. You know, while Pluto hanging out on your Saturn's not fun, Pluto's sextiling your Sun. I mean, that gives you so much intuition. It gives you so much power. There's a lot of like goodies that are coming from this. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful. We'll see what else we got going on here. I know Starry donated, so that's awesome. So we can definitely maybe talk to some other people. Who else is in the chat? Who else has questions? Starry Ari, we want to say big thank you to her, especially because she was so gracious to spread the love and donate some money to everybody in the chat, so we can definitely maybe give some insight into some people. If you guys know your sun, moon, and rising, please feel free to put that in the chat. That would be really helpful, so I can just take a quick peek and see who's going through some stuff, who needs some help, who needs some assistance. Also, equally, if you have questions specifically about a transit, if you know about a transit, let me know. Hi, Jody. I see your payment. Let me see if this has gone through. And I see you natally. Okay, cool. So, actually, there's a couple of people. So, we've got Patrick. I'm going to assume Jalen Donald and Rachel O'Donnell. So, we're going to go one at a time. Thank you, Starry. We'll get a couple people in here. All right, so let's go ahead with Patrick. Patrick, what's going on? What's your info? Give me your info so we can take a look at your chart. I see you, Micah. Patrick, give me your chart info so I can put this in here and I can get your chart going so we can see what you've got going on. About a double yod. Okay, can I get your birth information? Left your info in PayPal. Oh, you guys all did. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. I see your info, Patrick. Thank you. I'm going to put it in right now. April 2nd, 1989. $1989. 043, 1243. Wichita. All right, let me see if I can pull this up. All right, Patrick, looks like you got a Sag rising, your sun is in Aries, and your moon is in Aquarius. It was about my double yod. Okay, so let's look at... All right, so... which ones are you looking at? What are the angles? Because I don't have that shows up on here. So let me know which angles you're looking at, and I'm going to do it one by one. I'm assuming you're talking about the points. I can't really assume because there's a couple in here. So let me know which ones you're looking at. First of all, people might be wondering what a yod is. A yod is considered a finger of fate, or basically it puts some huge focus and emphasis on a point in the chart that it's pointing to, which is a release of energy. Unlike a square, which puts pressure, and unlike a trine, which is divine, a yod, you actually have to look for the point, which is going to release everything. It's going to point you in a direction. Pluto in the stellium, okay? Making aspects to Jupiter. Is that what I'm assuming? With Mars. Pluto with Mars. Pluto with Mars. Okay, yeah, and then you got the other side being your sun. So I'm going to assume you're talking about the yod between your sun, Mars, and Pluto. Yeah. So let's break it down. So what is Pluto? Pluto is about transformation, regeneration, rebirth, right? So Pluto in the 11th house, big goals, big dreams. It can be really powerful friends and things that are big, things that are going to allow you to have huge manifestations. It is retrograde, but it's in a Taurus degree. A yod being that exact aspect that it's making. So it's basically like two quincunx planets to Pluto. So Pluto to the sun, it's an inconjunct. So I would break it down as the inconjunct. So Pluto inconjunct the sun is basically like this realization, that's like this awareness, your thoughts, what you have to say, like your goals being very powerful, words being spells in themselves. Sun, Venus is also in the mix. I mean, so you probably the closest to the yod that you have, because I work with a 2 degree, would be the sun, although some would argue that Venus is a close second. Sun being ruler of the 8th is realizing that your thoughts create transformations, your fears create transformations, your words, movement, writing, the more that you journal, the more that you communicate. Remember, Aries is the first thing that you do, right? So it's like as soon as you get up in the morning, what are the first thoughts that come to you? Getting up in the morning and journaling might be really helpful. And then the other side of the yod being Mars. So Mars sextiling Aries in Gemini, the inconjunct to Pluto. I find that Mars in conjunct Pluto is a little bit more challenging. And even though the yod is the way out, Mars being the ruler of the 4th house is like movement. So the more that you communicate and you write, you become aware of your daily goals, right? Or the more that you can kind of move through things. Mars in your chart rules the 4th. So it's about keeping your home organized. It's about communicating, coming up with check-off lists, getting everything done, staying busy. But that focal point, coming back to Pluto, is like your thoughts, your words, your ideas, what you say, your rituals, your routine. It has power. So it's bringing you to a sense of awareness when it comes to what your goals are. And the more that you're coming in and really focusing and putting an emphasis on routine, writing, moving around, moving the body, right? Aries is the body, and how the flow of energy goes through your hands, believe it or not. You might be somebody who does really well with maybe, you know, being able to do Tai Chi, do hands-on healing, doing Reiki. That can be a great way to move the energy in your body. And Mars in conjunct Pluto, I also see that as like, you can juggle more than one goal. So when you bring them all together with the focal point being Pluto, you have powerful friends, you communicate well with powerful people, you can, in a way, bring a sense of power to the masses with the things that you write, the things that you say. Now, the other side of the yod, I'm going to assume you're talking about the aspects. Let's see, so where's the other one? Or that's the double yod. Are you talking about both of those, or is there another yod aspect that you have a question about? This one with the sun, Mars, Pluto point, if I'm correct, I have 3. So give me 1 second. Let me know if there's another yod that you want me to break down for you. Also, I should mention that, you know, Pluto being at a 14, that deals with like wealthy people. That deals with people who have like a great deal of wealth that they're willing to share. Look at your sun. Your sun is so close to the IC. It's like you understand endings, change, transformation better than other people. That's part of your gift, and that you can help other people by helping them go through transition and change and being able to talk to them about that. Right now, Chiron is hovering around your Venus and your sun. So through that process of like healing that you're working through, I hope you're writing something. I hope that you're putting together a blog, maybe a podcast, maybe you're sharing your experiences, even though they're painful, with other people. I feel like this is like really, really, really important. Let me know. Saturn, Pluto, and Mars. So then the other one being Saturn making aspects to Mars. You know, Saturn is technically intercepted, or Capricorn is intercepted in your chart, meaning if you look at your first house, it's Sag, and then the second house cusp is Aquarius, it gets swallowed up. So it's harder for you to work with Saturn energy. So this is a harder yod for you to actually activate and be aware of. Through that sense of independence, being on your own, finding yourself, actually that funnels into your Mars, and it opens your Mars up, and it makes you kind of aware of the fact that, you know, you can manifest health problems, you can manifest back problems, you can manifest issues with your hands, issues with digestion, issues with work. So it's about not taking on too much more than what you can handle. But you know, Saturn to Pluto, that sextile is yummy. I mean, that tells me that there is some great deal, once again, of support from friends that funnel into your first house. And that support from Pluto to your first house, you know, making that yod to your Mars. It's just activating all of your personal planets in Aries once again. It's activating your Sun, Mercury, Venus. Perhaps maybe you talk to women a lot. 100%. I'm an educator, writing a lot of humanitarian, refugee advocacy, and curriculum. That's the Pluto Mars, by the way. It's refugee work. That's awesome. That's such a great way to utilize that. I also kind of feel like, you know, like I said, the Saturn sextile Pluto is great, but it's harder to find that yod, or it's harder for that yod to activate because Saturn is technically intercepted in Capricorn. So I wonder, with Saturn quincunx your Mars, like, have you had health issues? Have you had problems like, you know, juggling jobs? Do you find that your body gets really overwhelmed? Have you had physical issues that have created issues being able to maintain and stay on top of task? You know, that makes me wonder. Be careful also with the retrograde over your Mars and Chiron hovering in your third house. You're cruising for, you know, issues with your hands or issues with accidents, things like that. I don't say that to scare you, but just be mindful. You know, it's very rare that you have a Chiron transit that doesn't manifest as having to open something up and deal with some kind of a pain. getting published this July with an article I wrote about being Mexican American. Okay, cool. I mean, like, that's awesome. That's a way to share and express your individual Aries experience and how you can help the masses, the aspect of Pluto. Like you, actually, I'm a Scorpio and I have an Aries moon, and all of my Pluto, Sun, Mercury also makes it in conjunct to my moon in the 7th house. So for me, it's been a lot of like all of the Scorpio work that I've gone through that's been really challenging, really painful, really hard, and made me feel very different, and almost like questioning my self-esteem a lot or questioning my capabilities a lot. It all puts that uncomfortable aspect onto my moon, and then it's in the 7th house. So I show up and I talk about it, right? And so what I love about Scorpio Aries aspects is there's a lot of courage, there's a lot of passion. You're not afraid to fight, right? Like, you're not afraid to stand up and defend people. And being a Sag rising, I think you have a lot to gain through, you know, Saturn and Jupiter in your 2nd house right now. It's all funneling energy into your 3rd house. And I do believe that you're going to be definitely publishing more, but I also believe it's about defending your roots and your upbringing and where you come from and healing something. So I hope that was helpful. I'm really excited to see what you're doing. You're doing some awesome things, and definitely learn more about having Capricorn intercepted in your chart. Makes it so much harder to work with Uranus, Saturn, and Neptune. But you're out of the Saturn return, so that's really, really, really good news. Okay, so looks like next we had Jaylyn. I'm gonna plug in your info. So hopefully that was helpful for you, Patrick. I'm gonna move on to putting in the next chart information. Okay, so August 22nd. 1979, and that was at 2:22 a.m. And that was in Edmonton, Canada. So many Canadians. I have so many Canadians. It's so cool. So many. So 2:22 a.m. General guidance, what's going on with your chart? All right, so moving on to Jaylyn. I'm just catching up in the chat, guys, so give me a second. Okay, Jody. Cancer rising. Look at this. This is your moment to fame. Venus on your ascendant. Moon's crossing over your ascendant. So you're really putting yourself out there right now. Okay, so you've got Cancer rising, Sun in Leo, and your moon is in Leo. My. How are you doing with the Jupiter oppositions, girl? Lots of changes, huh? You know, probably the big thing is number one, Venus is about to cross your ascendant. And Venus is the ruler of your 5th house. So you're going to be pretty attractive, pretty seen. You know, Venus, when it crosses your ascendant as a woman, it's putting focus and emphasis on the beauty, the body, your hair, your makeup, your aesthetics. In your chart, Venus rules your 5th house of romance. It also does rule Libra, excuse me, not just Libra, Taurus, but in your chart, Taurus is intercepted. So it can be a great time to just be like taking photos of yourself, kind of like doing a little bit of upkeep on how you're looking. Venus in Cancer puts a huge focus on the skin and the aesthetics of the skin, and even like the cheeks and the eyes and the breasts. So if you are somebody who's trying to be dating and putting more focus on that, you might emphasize parts of your body in that way. And Venus has been recently conjunct natal Mars. And so that tells me like there can be some stuff brewing where you're like thinking a lot about romance and wanting to see romance blossom, but it may not be blossoming just quite yet. It's coming pretty soon. Jupiter will still make oppositions all year to all of your planets in Leo. And Jupiter's hanging out in your 9th house of foreign travel, education, philosophy, and beliefs. So this year is active. You know, traditionally somebody who's got a lot of planets in their 3rd house, they like cars, they like to go for a drive, they like to get away for the weekend, they like to travel, they like their electronics and all that stuff. With Jupiter, you know, ruler of Sag in your 6th house, in your 9th, it tells me that you're either wanting to learn new skills for work, or there is some new changing schedules for work, or you're wanting to funnel education into work, or you're wanting to make more time to travel. So one thing I would say is like holy oppositions. Jupiter opposed Jupiter basically means there's a multitude of options. It's like, well, do I want to put money into buying a car and going on a bunch of like little trips this year? Or do I want to like go on 2 longer trips, 2 faraway trips? While Jupiter's in Pisces, can be a wonderful time to go on a faraway trip. Unfortunately, Jupiter's getting ready to go retrograde. So you're not going to have Jupiter in this sign for much longer. I think that it can manifest as you going on like a much farther away kind of foreign trip next year when it fully goes into Pisces and it comes into a trine actually with your Mars and with your Uranus. So I love when Jupiter's in Pisces in the 9th house. It's like a great time to like go to Europe and like see all the churches and go and see all of like the fancy museums and like all of the art that maybe you've always wanted to see, right? And so it's a little different for you to kind of do it in this way. The other thing is that Jupiter is not just in opposition to your natal Jupiter, it's your moon, your Venus, and your sun. So if we break it down, the sun is about how you communicate and where you go. It's your daily routine. Venus is about relationships, ruler of the 5th. And then the moon is your chart ruler. So maybe you want to learn a new language. Maybe you want to get a new car. Maybe you end up meeting somebody who is culturally diverse than you. They live in another place, right? These things are all possible. I would watch for that because I feel like what it's trying to do is it's trying to get you to really clear your schedule and make more time for travel so that way you feel like more fulfilled. Finishing a 2nd degree, integrative medicine, high work schedule as well, integrating it and everything. I love traveling. Yeah, you need more of it. So, you know, like I said, just weighing out these options. Like for some people with a chart like this, they want to get a new car, they change cars very often, and I would say, or they go on trips a lot, short distance, like going away for the weekend, which is fine and that's what you like to do. But I think what Jupiter is going to tell you is that when it comes to your schedule, when it comes to your budget, you may see the value, and instead of going on a bunch of other little trips, it's like going on like 2 big trips. One may actually manifest as you starting and getting ready to do this in August. Another one may manifest actually, I think, as early as November, December, or about February, March next year. Those are the times when it's easiest for you, right? But Jupiter opposed Jupiter, you can't do wrong. It's just excess. I think that this is a challenging chart just given the eclipses right now. It's a little confusing. You know, Cancer risings are having a bit of a rough time because you've got a Mercury retrograde, an eclipse, all these planets going on actually in your 12th house. One thing I'm looking at that I think is kind of cool is right now the sun is conjunct your Juno and Mercury has not hit that degree yet. Sometimes when I see Juno in the 12th house, especially in Gemini, you may end up with a foreigner. They may speak another language. They may be from a different place. This may be somebody that you meet in higher education. It may be somebody who's a professor. You might meet somebody while you're traveling, right? Even your moon conjunct Jupiter. Chart ruler conjunct Jupiter and Venus, you know. When you have a really strong Saturn transit, relationship stuff happens. And so one thing I want you to know is that with Saturn in Aquarius, next year, Saturn is going to come into an opposition with your Jupiter, your Saturn, and, your Jupiter, your moon, and your Venus, and your sun. That tells me, first of all, yeah, you need to brush up on another language because you're probably going to meet somebody who speaks another language. But 2, you're running the transits that I usually see where somebody's like, I don't know, I just got to go to this country and I got to be there. And then they meet somebody and then it's like, oh, what do I do? I'm going back and forth with somebody in another country or in another state. And the 3rd house is documents. So it can manifest as like back and forth. And do you meet somebody you're crazy about and you guys decide to be together and then you're trying to figure out how to file for a visa? Yes, always go overseas for longer periods of time. Small trips are okay. The longer ones are bring me excitement and growth. Yeah, and that's what you're going to want more of in this next year. Interesting stuff. I feel like travel and connect with people as much as you can. Realize that there is a possibility there's going to be more of a long distance relationship in this next year, and you'll have to communicate mostly by phone or by online. Equally, you can also meet people who are in other places before you get there. I think that's the beauty of having Jupiter in opposition to Jupiter. The question is do you guys speak the same language, right? Do you speak the same language? Juno in Gemini can also mean that there's some connection to a Gemini city. I wonder, have you had an interest in going to London? Has that come up for you at all? Is that somewhere that you've been to quite a bit? I guess one other thing I would say is you're coming into your Uranus opposition. So Uranus in the 5th house is like a lot of having fun, having a good time, you know, sometimes dating bad boys. And then when Uranus comes into opposition in your 11th house, you realize that you want to have celebrations, you want to have goals, you want to have a merger. There is some aspect of you actually wanting to be with somebody more seriously, and wanting to kind of integrate friends. You know, friends can become lovers, lovers can be friends. Friends can actually set you up with people also. So that's an interesting square that you have being set up with transit Uranus in Taurus coming into an opposition with Uranus, transit Saturn coming in an opposition. That's going to create a fixed square next year. So it's going to hold your 2nd, 5th, 9th, and 11th house very tightly. So definitely romance and communication and your goals play a huge role in this next year. So you'll go through that equally, like I said, for about 2 years. Be interesting to see how that pans out. Actually, I would highly recommend when Jupiter comes conjunct your South Node, the beginning of next year, checking in with an astrologer and maybe talking to somebody who can really help you. Open to that. I've been there a few years back during the bombings. Oh, scary. Yeah, just usually, I mean, you might want to look at cities that are associated with Gemini. That might actually be where you meet somebody. It's very possible. So you'll have to let me know how that goes. Hopefully that was helpful. And yeah, super holy squares. I love that your sun is conjunct Regulus though. Do you wear like a lot of like gold rings? Do you have like a lot of gold jewelry on your wrists and on your hands because you have all of that, all those planets in Leo? Or do you have like a really fly car? You must have like a car that you put a lot of stuff into or something. And the way that you communicate is very expressive. Like you must talk with your hands, or there's some aspect of you just like getting really into it. I love that you've got the moon, Jupiter, Venus. It's like you really do love to travel. And I would say to go even further, to really kind of get connected to people, it might be a good time to start learning a new language, especially if you're thinking about going somewhere. Awesome. I'm glad that that was helpful. Thanks, Jody. All right, so I'm going to move on to my next person. It looks like it's going to be Rachel. Hey, Rachel. I feel like my life is going to change significantly in the next few months. Do you see a big move for me? For some reason, I feel like it may have more business in New York. Hi, Micah. I'll be with you in just a second. And I think we had somebody else too. Starlight, I see you as well. You're up next. You're on deck. I will be with you shortly. Okay, so let's put in your info. Although I'm pretty sure I have your chart on my laptop. That's okay. 11/8/1990. Okay, 7:34 in Dallas. Dallas. All right. I was in Texas recently. I went all over Texas. I went through, I think I was in Dallas, right? What's that? I think it was. I was in Austin. I was all over. I was all over the place. Texas is huge. It took forever to get through there. All right. Okay, so looks like November 8th, 1990, 7:43. Oh, hello. Give me a second. Hold on. I got to correct this time. Sorry. 34 a.m. There we go. Okay, and we're back. Scorpio rising. Scorpio sun, moon in Leo. For some reason, I feel like I have more business in New York. Interesting. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. Those of you guys who are sending it in, just be patient. We got a couple people. It's just uploading and updating. So we've got a couple people that are ahead of you. Just be patient. Right now, we're checking in with Rachel. Then I'm going to be talking to Starlight Readings. Then we are going to drop in and talk to Lindsay. And I'm going to assume Miss Thompson. Okay, there we go. Yeah, we see you guys. We got you. Don't worry. All right, so let's get into it for you, Rachel. Do you feel like okay, do you see a big move for me? Okay, so big moves. Moves deal with the third house, that's movement. And we want to go and look at what's happening with Saturn, okay? So let's look at this and see what's happening with your transits. Well, Saturn's in your third house, so it is definitely putting a focus and an emphasis on, is it time to move? Is moving the right move? Is it the right place to go? The reason why I think you're experiencing delays, first of all, for all Scorpios and Scorpio risings, one thing I will tell you is that Saturn is 4 signs away from your sun or your rising. Fourth house is home. It's about ends of situations, where you put your feet, you know, in the ground, where you rent, where you buy. It deals with family and all of that stuff. The reason why you're feeling this is because Saturn is coming into friction with Uranus. So you've got Uranus in your 6th house, which is kind of putting your schedule all over the place, and you're working and you're not working and you're doing this and you're doing that, and it's squaring off with your 3rd house. How have I seen this manifest for Scorpios or Scorpio risings? First of all, I would say, what's going on with work? How are you working? Are you working remotely? Are you trying to work online? Are you trying to focus on, you know, being able to grow an online business? How are you communicating with people? Things like that. I see you, Natalie. Give me just a second. You'll have to, let's see, let me know your PayPal, because I'm actually not seeing you on here. So let me know your PayPal information. We'll get that from you and I will circle back around. I don't want to forget anybody. If you guys are paying for something, I want to definitely get to you. But Rachel, you know, that's the question right now. Saturn sitting in your 3rd house. Is it time to move? Is it not? The reason why I think you're kind of hitting a snag is because Saturn's squaring your sun and your Pluto, which can mean that you're feeling kind of trapped. You don't know if it's the right time to make a decision. You can be, you know, working out of fear. I believe a really positive aspect from Saturn will present an opportunity for you to move. Now, right now, Saturn's in opposition to your Jupiter, which is the ruler of your 2nd house of money. Okay, you're an artist and you work from home. Cool. So putting focus on how you're building your business and how you're doing more within your 3rd house is the name of the game. If you look at your chart here, you've got Saturn in your 3rd house in Aquarius right here. Okay, and it's making an opposition to Jupiter right here. It's also making a square to everything in Scorpio right here. It's a tricky square. You want to move when you have some positive aspects. So I'm thinking like moves are more going to be likely when you've got maybe Mercury into a trine with Saturn and you start reevaluating, you know, can I afford to live there? Is it a good idea for me to relocate there? You know, am I going to be able to swing it? Then again, I think that you don't want to do this when you have planets in opposition to Saturn. So for example, now Mars is in opposition to your Saturn. It's not a good move right now. Unless you meet somebody romantic in New York City, I wouldn't move. When the Sun and Mercury come into an opposition with Saturn, equally, you're going to feel the pressure of being like, should I move? Should I not move? Still wouldn't move. You want to do it when your chart ruler is in positive aspect to Saturn. So your chart ruler being Pluto or Mars, things get a little bit easier. You're going to get some work out of the way. And I think moving becomes a lot smoother and more possible and more likely when Mars and the Sun go into Libra and starts coming into a trine with Saturn, and Mercury is coming into a trine with Jupiter in your 3rd. It might be cheaper, more affordable for you. It might be a smoother move if you've either got somebody who says, hey, come stay with me until you find a place. Hey, I know of somebody looking for a roommate. Hey, there's an apartment, you know, down the street. I'm going to talk to somebody, get you in there. That's going to be a smoother transition point. Granted, Saturn in your 3rd house of moving will square with Uranus all year. You've got it right now, and then you're going to have it again. That's going to be happening in December. So Uranus in the 6th house is work comes and work goes, and you want to expand your home, but you never know when work is actually going to pay and it's not going to pay. So there's more stress revolving around whether or not there's work that can facilitate a move right now and then at the end of this year. I will also tell you that another way out will be when Jupiter comes into your 4th house. expanding your home, it's always a great time to move too. And it starts to trine your Sun and your Pluto and your Venus. So another fun moving time may actually be like when Mars and Venus come into your third house, and there's trines and things that are actually happening from Jupiter to your Sun. So that would also be about February, March, or even March going into April of 2022. That would be a much easier segue. But you're one of those Scorpios who's experiencing Uranus in opposition to all of your planets in the 12th house, which means you can't hide out anymore, right? It's basically saying like you got to get out there. You got to put your work out there. You got to leave your house. You got to go and interact with people. You know, Scorpios like this are very private. My sister's got a very similar chart, you know, Sun and Venus and also Scorpio rising. And one of the challenges that you guys are having is just even getting on the precipice of even making change and psychologically being okay with the idea of making change. If you're not moving within some of the dates that I gave you, moving is going to be more psychologically challenging. You may not necessarily have work to fall back on and things like that. Personally, I would say, you know, for all Scorpios, Saturn in Aquarius is definitely creating some challenges, but it won't leave these same degrees next year. So Saturn is still squaring all of these placements. The way out, I think, is going to be Jupiter in Pisces, or Jupiter that's trining and making a lot of aspects. So you're feeling the energy now that you need to move, but stick within the timeline that I gave you, and know that in a way it's harder for you to move next year. So it's almost like getting this going now is smarter than doing it later, because I think later is going to be much, much, much more challenging. Personally, that's just me. Let me know if that is helpful. And I would say do lean on the idea of like that 11th house when all the planets move into Libra, you know, maybe going in and finding a roommate, staying with somebody, staying with a friend, filling it out, making sure you like it before you really segue of going in there, or going in and being in New York City, because, you know, certainly your relocation chart would be interesting as well if that's somewhere that you really want to go. But Jupiter in your 4th house is going to help you expand your home all next year. Jupiter in your 4th house conjunct with Neptune, trining everything, also makes me wonder, is it New York or is there another country that you want to go to? Many Scorpio risings, especially with Jupiter coming into a conjunction with Neptune, means next year your home will feel like, you know, you being able to find peace in your home, serenity in your home, living closer to water, maybe living in a foreign place. You know, your house becomes very zen. Okay, Natalie, I'm looking for you. I have all of my PayPal up. Okay, now it just came through. It says it came through at 8:42. So now I see it. So I do see you now. So it just went through. So apologies for the delay. I'm going to take Natalie, and I'm also going to be taking Starlight. I'm actually going to take Starlight and then Natalie. So just be patient. Micah, I see you too. Thank you. Thank you guys for your patience. So Starlight, oh, we have the same birthday. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up for you. (11/11/1987), and that's at 2:41 a.m. also in Texas. Corpus Christi. Okay, so 11/11/87, 2:41 a.m., Corpus Christi. So I see that you paid in 2 payments. That's cool. What is your question, my dear? Starlight readings. Let me see what your other thing said. Virgo rising. Yep, North Node in Gemini. Looks like it's in my 9th house. It is in my 10th or my 9th. Can you explain my life right now? Isn't it cool when you see a lot of people who are going through the same stuff? It's really helpful. Okay, this is a really good example of some immutable squares. All right, so just to get into this a little bit, Starlight, you know, here's the deal. Yes, you are a Virgo rising, 23 degrees rising. You have your sun at 18 degrees Scorpio, and your moon is sitting at 24 degrees of Cancer in your 10th house. Okay? So a little bit about the questions that you had. So it looks like you asked tentatively about Virgo rising, North Node, and Gemini. Technically, your transit North Node is in your 9th house right now. Yes, transit North Node is in your 9th house. Is it in the 10th or the 9th house? Can you explain your life right now? First of all, holy fucking mutable squares. Like the people who are Virgo risings, who are somewhere around, let's say 20 to 24 degrees. You've got Neptune conjunct your descendant, which means relationships aren't making sense, or people are kind of ghosty, or they're showing up and they're disappearing, or you're meeting more Neptunian people. That's challenging. 2, when you've got mutable signs on your midheaven, like you just had an eclipse, conjunct your midheaven, the sun, Mercury's all in your midheaven, it's putting pressure on your ascendant and your descendant, and it just tells me what you want is you want authority of your life right now. You want to feel like you have control. Right now, it seems to me like because of the square from Neptune to Uranus in your 4th, from Neptune to the planets transiting your midheaven, from Neptune to your ascendant, you're not sure of what you want. Home life feels, or emotional life feels a little all over the place. Very emotional. Relationships are a big question mark, and so is your career. So this is a very unusual kind of setup for a lot of things that are going on. I feel like I need deeper relationships and ending some. I also want a new job. First things first, let's put focus and emphasis on where the eclipses are, right? Because anytime you've got a planet on an angular house, it's going to put pressure on your midheaven ascendant in your 4th house, and it makes the wheel of your chart turn. So all of these things are turning. Outer planets will prevail though. So part of what's going on with Neptune coming up on your ascendant is it's basically saying, let's dissolve all these old relationships. Let's get rid of all the people who have mental issues, drug issues. They're not clear. They don't know what they want. Let's just get them out of here, right? 2, a Mercury retrograde on your midheaven, an eclipse conjunct your midheaven. There is huge emphasis on what do you want to do right now? Where is your career going? What do you think and what do you have to say? Many Virgo risings who have a midheaven in Gemini often juggle 2 things. Basically meaning like they have their career and then their side job, or they wear 2 hats at work, or they work in media or communications, contracts. Your midheaven's at a 23, meaning you work with a group of people, you go back and forth, different people, you might service different people. Somebody just asked about a descendant. Basically, your ascendant is your rising or your 1st house. Your descendant is your 7th house cusp. It's your shadow self. That's your 7th house. That's your descendant. It's the opposite of the ascendant. See where it says a little DS on the chart. Right now, the truth is that there's not a lot of clarity. I feel like when you get out of Gemini season and when the eclipses have settled, you'll have a better understanding of what you want. Having the North Node sitting in your 9th house and a trine to Saturn wants to help you think about long-term goals, long-term beliefs, what you believe in, what you want to learn, how through knowledge and exploration with the North Node in your 9th house actually funnels into your 5th house. It can be romantic partners at a distance, meeting people at a distance, taking continuing education so you can expand your career, wanting to go back to school, turning a hobby into something that's more full-time, right? I have this too. I have an early degree Libra rising, and I've got Saturn in my 5th and the North Node in my 9th. And I, like you, I don't have the Neptune stuff, but the Saturn to the North Node in the 9th has me interacting with people at a distance. Remember, 9th house is foreigners. So it wants you to talk to people in faraway places. It wants you to travel. It wants you to take courses. It wants you to learn, to change your perspective, change your beliefs. Gemini, it's mutable. So right now with these squares, I'm going to be honest with you, it looks very challenging having all these planets in opposition to Uranus. And the question is do you enjoy where you're living? If the relationships are being flushed out, then what I want you to really address is, what are you doing for work? Do you like it? Do you not like it? If you don't like it, it's time to come up with a new 9th house plan. Somehow about changes in your career can also affect where you're living. One thing I know about your chart next year is as Jupiter goes into Pisces, your 4th house ruler, this is what will happen. You will meet somebody And the person that you meet most likely will be culturally diverse, from a different place. They may live with family. They may have family from another country living with them. They might have a brother. They might have a parent they live with, but they'll have some cultural difference than you. And you will have the opportunity to move in and to live with them. And you will be like, what the hell is this? I didn't plan this. Well, why is this going on? Like, you know, I don't want to live with somebody else's family. But when the Lord of your fourth goes into the seventh, conjunct Neptune, they will own land in another country, or they will be from a country that's near the sea, and they'll want to have you travel and go learn about their culture. And it's really going to expand because your North Node's in the ninth. Saturn from the 5th to the 9th is about your heart opening up, learning more about love, traveling for love, love at a distance, finding the higher meaning of love in relationships, right? So that's fun. That's part of the reason why you're being stalled out. I think the other reason why you're being stalled out is you've got Pluto in the 5th house coming into a square with your natal Mars, ruler of your 8th. So it's about regenerative energy, making more money, focusing on creating something. You know, when Pluto's in the 5th, square planets in the 2nd, you got to use your creative talents to actually make money. You come into your artist, your true artistic self. You create children, you create a new job, you create art. There's something that you need to make, right? Pluto's been in a square to Jupiter in the 8th. This is some really complex astrology, just between the oppositions and the squares and anything like that. But right now, I would say North Node and Mercury, you know, doing its thing with the sun. What have you realized the last couple of days of what you want to learn more of? How have your beliefs changed? I'd be interested to hear what you do for a living. That would give me a little bit more insight also, so I can kind of see how that's manifesting for you. Let me know. It's interesting that you practice tarot too, I'm going to assume, because it says tarot readings. Your chart is eerily similar to mine. Spooky. Spooky, spooky, similar. I would say, especially if this is, you know, Mercury being the ruler of your midheaven located in the 2nd, giving advice for a living, definitely can be putting a focus and an emphasis on like really going out with that, going big, doing more, putting yourself on the world stage, you know? Medical, lab tech, and a tarot reader. See, you do both. You do two things. Both are analyzing. It's very mercurial. But I think that what you're going to find is next year, when Uranus comes into an opposition with your sun, and the sun rules the 12th house, you're going to go deeper into trying to make money through your occult stuff. And it'll happen. It'll work. The problem is like you're not going to want to be seen. You're going to want to be hiding. There's some aspect of not wanting to show yourself, or not wanting to show your face, or maybe needing to do stuff on camera. Expand. Start doing readings internationally. Putting your work online. Getting followers everywhere. I have North Node transit my 9th house. I started doing more media. So now I'm like connecting with all these people all over the place. Even though it's always been there, now I'm actually really showing up and I'm making those connections and I'm teaching. So North Node transit in the 9th house is teaching, learning, some kind of educating, training, meeting online friends too. Yeah, things are going to change. You are definitely one of those people who I would say, like, to unpack everything, it's a lot because it's all of the Saturn squares and the Pluto squares. Maybe a good idea before Uranus opposes your sun is to check in and get a reading with somebody. Definitely check in and get a reading. It can be a really, really great time for you to do that this year, at some point this year, before Uranus comes into an opposition with your sun next year and squares Saturn. That's when you have to give birth to something creatively, whether it is a kid or it ends up being a new relationship or a project. Yep, very private. It's because the ruler of your 12th is sitting in the 2nd, so you don't want to share your creativity. You don't want to show your face. You don't want to be put out there, but you got that 2nd house stellium, very creative, very capable of making money. There's no reason why you shouldn't be putting yourself out there. Consider really doing more for marketing. Hopefully that was helpful. Now let's bop on over to, let's see who we've got next. Okay, so now we can go to, let's see. Now it's Natalie. Okay. So let's put this chart up, get that going. It looks like you are February 28th. And thank you guys for being so cool, letting me do this on a public platform. It's really great because lots of people learn this way and they're going to start kind of understanding astrology a lot more. This is the best way to learn. So thank you guys for being willing to put your life out there on internet land. Okay, so 2/28/1988, 5:13 a.m. And that was in Los Angeles, but you live in Sedona. It's beautiful there. I'm actually from Arizona, and I lived in LA for 15 years, and I just moved. All right, so let's pull your chart up. February 28th, 1988, and that was at 5:13 a.m. Okay. All right, so your question is, how do these Saturn-Uranus squares apply to me, and how can I best work with them? Or if there's something more significant in my chart, I'd be interested to know. Thank you, Starlight. I appreciate it. I love your chart, girl. You gotta share what you got with the world. All right, so looks like Natalie asked about the Saturn-Uranus squares. Here's the deal. Saturn's on your ascendant. Let's start there. So Saturn on the ascendant, ruler of your 12th house. It's about learning to listen to your intuition, practicing boundaries, spiritually cutting cords, setting the stage for what you're committing to. Saturn already crossed your ascendant, and now it's going retrograde back into the 12th. So right now, that means there are still some things that you're working on that you're kind of having to wrap up and finish up before it crosses your ascendant. Saturn on the ascendant, from a physical standpoint, is about paying attention to the body. Being an Aquarius rising, it can be your ankles, circulation, things that pertain to just movement, mobility, nerves. And that's important because it's squaring off with Uranus in your third. What you want to pay attention to is your breathing, your breath. You are an air rising sign. So when Saturn is in tense aspects to your third house, you don't breathe, the body gets tight, it gets restricted, it's hard for you to let energy flow. So one thing I would say is yoga, meditation, breath work, like learning to relax and like letting things kind of be, like you need to breathe. Saturn square Uranus is about this integration of the old tried and true method and also what's going on with innovation and things that are new, things that are shifting. So Uranus being your chart ruler in the third is like, are you totally rebelling against the idea that you have to make a car payment? Are you deciding to walk more? Do you want to get a bicycle? Are you finding that there's conflict revolving around what's going on with your ideas and you're trying to communicate with people and like people aren't communicating very well with you? There's some aspect of these two being in friction. Now, Uranus is your chart ruler, so you are Uranus. Uranus in the third, thinking differently, talking differently about values. You're becoming a different person, you're maturing, and that means that you're gonna deal with people like siblings, aunt, uncles, cousins, neighbors, people in your day-to-day life who aren't gonna agree with you about stuff. They're not gonna share the same values, so it can bring up some conflict, right? Also, you got Mercury on your ascendant. So like breath is so important. Communicating is so important. You are a little messenger. You very much are Mercury. You're Hermes. And Mercury on the ascendant usually does not shut up. Look at Mike the Peace Stealer. He's got Mercury on his ascendant and he's just a little chatterbox. He is constantly channeling and bringing stuff up and talking about things. And so with Mercury and Aquarius, it's like, I have this idea. And Uranus in the third is like, never mind, changed my mind. So it's almost like Uranus is saying that you're constantly learning and there's new information coming in and you're having to analyze that information. And it's like, it makes your head spin. So it's putting a lot of pressure on your nervous system, right? I think that's majorly going to get triggered also, you know, because it's coming into a square with your natal Pluto. So as Uranus opposes Pluto, you start changing your beliefs about your career. You start changing your beliefs about what you could or what you should do for a living. You start becoming really obsessive and fixated with what you're learning and what you're working on. You said only people I'm close to. Yeah, so that's planets in the third house. They're people who you see on a regular basis. This is just going to make you come off like you're a little bit more confrontational than usual. That's all. And with Saturn on your ascendant, making squares to Pluto and Uranus, it's about who you choose to have conflict with. There are some people that are not worth a response. And that's what you're going to learn with Saturn on your Mercury. It's like, I don't need to respond to this. Fuck this. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to answer that call. I'm not going to send that text message. I'm not going to fight with people about who's right and who's wrong. And it's very, because Pluto's in your 10th, it's very much about like cultural things, beliefs, religion, things that pertain to the higher, the moral ground. Like you're going to deal with people that just like they're not going to play fair, basically. So it's learning who to have conflict with and who not to have conflict with. Mercury in your chart rules the 8th house. Mercury also rules Gemini, which is your 5th house. So it's whether or not people who you're communicating with or dating, 5th house is being honest with you, 8th house. This is also important because your intuition kicks in when Saturn's on your Mercury, and it's about whether or not you're communicating and saying everything that you know, or you're just tuning into your intuition and like in having a sense of all knowing, right? That can be also kind of complicated because you could be talking to more than one person. You could be talking to somebody who's talking to more than one person, and you can be sussing that out and kind of feeling like, are they being straight with me? I don't know. Be mindful of that. That definitely can get a little sticky. But it's most intense right now with the square, and then it's also going to come up again in December of this year. So there's going to be a lot of back and forth that's going to be happening then. One other transit that I think is important is Neptune's on your North Node. Hi, ruler of your 2nd house, the ruler of your sun. Definitely in a situation right now where there is some aspect of not always being aware of your boundaries with other people. Like Neptune dissolves, so in the 1st house, you can have major issues with your body, major issues emotionally. You're having all this conflicting stuff where emotionally you're feeling one thing and physically you're seeing something else, and it doesn't make sense. It's confusing. Major relationship breakdown the end of last year is very dishonest. Bingo. You know, and that actually really started with Saturn being in your 12th house in a square to your Venus relationships, right? Whether or not they come to an end. Personally, all you need is one really, really, really solid sun transit in your solid. Jupiter is about to transit your sun, which is epic for friendships, really good for your career. This will happen in the new year. Your chart, because the sun is the ruler of the 7th house and it's located in the 1st, you need to be alone to find the right person. You need to be in tune with yourself to find the right person. You need to be aware of what you need to find the right person. You don't realize this, but you subconsciously choose your partner. So if you were with the wrong person, or you know, Pluto square your Venus, Saturn square your Venus last year manifested as an ending of relationships, don't worry about that. Jupiter is going to go into Pisces, and it's going to go into Aries, and just Jupiter on your sun is going to manifest as a new relationship and somebody who understands you for who you are and somebody who can't bullshit you. And the nodes are squaring your sun, so it's like no matter what you do right now, you feel like there needs to be changes emotionally and within the home, and also changes within your career. But the sun's the ruler of your 7th, so it's actually trying to kind of pin you down and unfortunately right now be on your own, also with Neptune on your North Node, so you can envision and think about what you do need. So you're paying attention to your emotions, so you bring somebody in who's aware of what you have to give emotionally, right? Jupiter conjunct Venus also is not a bad placement for relationships at all. At all. Eventually it'll play out, I think, in a very lovely way when you have your Jupiter return in about a year and a half. That'll definitely open things up. It's like, I actually think that what's probably going to happen when Jupiter goes in and it conjuncts your sun is I think you will have met somebody and it gets really significant from February of 2022 to about May of next year. And according to your astrology, you're getting married somewhere around the first half of 2023. You'll get married or you'll get engaged. It'll be one of the two. But like something much better is coming. You got to be on your own because you got to reevaluate and really look at things and ask yourself, was that really love? Did I really deserve that? You know, if you went through a Saturn Pluto square to your Venus, it's like, bye. That person was being dishonest. They were lying. They're being deceitful, you know, on to the next. Much better one that's coming the beginning of 2023. So also helping you kind of build wealth and establish wealth as well. So that's really exciting. Hopefully that was helpful for you, Natalie. Looks like now I can move to Micah. And then after Micah, I'm going to go to Lindsay, and then we will do Thompson. I'm going to wrap this up, guys. So I'm going to actually probably shut down payments. So I'm just letting you guys know that's probably going to be it for tonight, just so I can get the rest of these people. But I will be back. Hi, Asha. How's it going, girl? How's it going? Hopefully that was helpful. Okay, so let's pop on over to Micah. Best place to move for career and meeting in general. Let's see. Am I crazy? Did I just have your info up here? Did we look at hers already? I'm already forgetting. Micah, do I have your birth information? Can I get that from you? I don't know why I'm not seeing it here. Let me know. Sent me. Oh, I see you. Never mind. 31092 St. Louis. Uh, 31092. And that's in 3:35 a.m. And that's in St. Louis, Missouri. Cap Rising, how's it going, girl? Cap Rising, Sun in Pisces, Moon in Taurus. A move is coming, actually, because, you know, there's an eclipse that's going to be conjunct your moon, I think around November 19th, if I remember correctly. A North Node eclipse, so the North Node technically won't be there, but the true North Node moves into Taurus in the new year, and it'll be conjunct your moon. About really finding something solid and stable in regards to where you're living, but moon rules your 7th house, so it's with a partner. Cool. Uranus is hanging out in your 4th house. So you've seen how it's danced on and off your IC, coming in and out of your 4th house, and you move, and then you want to move again, and then you move again. I think I remember telling you, like, hey, it'll manifest as a couple of moves, if you remember. So I think that that's really interesting. Yeah, it's been a year. I have Uranus conjunct my IC, so I know what that's like. There's definitely been a lot of chaos in my in my living situations. But thankfully, even when Uranus goes retrograde, it will not sit on your IC again. The only thing you need to be mindful of is that Uranus is coming into squares all year long with Saturn. So it's whether or not you initiate the move, whether or not you're moving because you want independence. It's like, do you move out too soon and think that you can cover all the expenses on your own, or should you have waited, or should you have gone and moved in with another person? Remember, Uranus in the 4th house, it wants communal living. Whether that's with a roommate, or living in an apartment complex, or living on a plot of land where there's multiple people. Anybody who's got Saturn transiting your 1st house in a square to Uranus in your 4th, a lot of these people are like, let's go and start a commune. You know, people just want to go and like live together and grow food and be like hippies. A lot of painful endings, but being able to pay off debt. So that's cool. It's that reevaluation of like, do I save my money and live in this smaller space, or live at home, or live in a place that's cheaper, so I can kind of find financial freedom, the square to Uranus. Through living with other people or living in different places, that can also be really helpful. So be aware of that. There is a lot of energy building right now, and you saw this in February, you saw this in May. Now you're going to see this again when Saturn squares Uranus. So pay attention to what comes up actually in this next month or two. And it'll get especially colorful, for example, like when all these planets move into Leo and they come into an opposition with Saturn, and it may manifest as somebody trying to get you to move in with them or move for them. Relationships look banging. I know you didn't ask about that, but it's definitely going to put a huge focus and an emphasis with Mars and Venus in your 7th house with somebody pursuing you. But Saturn is that cooling effect in your 1st house where it's going to practice restraint and not jumping at the idea of moving for somebody or moving in with somebody or jumping into a relationship. Yeah, you'll meet somebody. You will meet somebody. Somebody's really going to be probably pretty hardcore pursuing you. And this is really for anybody who's got Leo in the 7th. So this can be for mid to late Capricorns, early Aquariuses. With Mars and Venus conjunct in the 7th in opposition to Saturn, I would say practice restraint. Don't just run into it, because you might find that by the time all of these planets come into Scorpio and it opposes Uranus, you're having to make yet another change in relationships somewhere around November. So, probably waiting to move is for the better. What you want to see is a really positive aspect between your 3rd house ruler and like Saturn or Jupiter. So for example, now we're here in June. Sorry, I went a little too far back. Now we're here in June, and Saturn is close to your Mars, but it's going retrograde. I think when Saturn conjuncts your 3rd house ruler, that may be a better time for like a more independent move. So you can move in with other people this year. You can live in with other people. But I think that when Saturn comes up on your Mars with the Sun, moving is looking a whole lot easier, at least a more independent move come about March, April of next year. But to me, I would say be very careful, because every 4 months you're going to get sidelined, Looking at where you should be moving, I mean, like I said, communal stuff, things like that. Your IC can tell you a lot about where you end up living. I don't know if you're aware of that, or people who are listening, but your IC is in Taurus. So Taurus is bakeries, banks, anywhere that's going to be connected to places where there's some kind of building. At a 9, it might mean closer to a university, closer to religious places, places where they're going to have lots of art and culture. It might be close to an art school or somewhere along those lines. So it can be that you're drawn to a place like that because it's Venus, where aesthetically you like the buildings and all of that stuff. Typically a 9, though, is going to be also like a lot of cultural diversity, especially in terms of food. No, I mean, Saturn says it's time, and Mars in the 1st house means it's time for my own space. So if you do find yourself living with other people intermittently this year, what's going to happen come the beginning of next year is you're going to be like, I'm fucking done. I want to live on my own. I want independence. So that's what will happen. Don't look at Saturn and Mars as a bad thing. You want to see what Mars is ruling. You'll definitely have either some kind of conflicts with a roommate, or conflicts with neighbors, or conflicts living with family when Saturn hits Mars. So it's like you really are being pushed out of the nest in some big way, going either to a new home or a new neighborhood then. Cap rising, Uranus sitting in my IC. I literally moved from a farm with other people growing food. Yes. So, that's not for everybody, but definitely a lot of people are doing that, and that's because of Uranus in the 4th house. It's like communal meals, joint meals, coming together with family, your family that you create. It may not be your blood family, but it's like having, Friendsgiving and everybody kind of contributing to what they bring to the table and helping each other out at home. Communal living, Uranus in the 4th. One of my favorite things to do, because I have Uranus in the 4th in Capricorn, is I always have, I make all of the holiday meals for the family, and I would have like one party where it's like, for all of my friends for the holidays, and I'd have another party for my family, and I would bring everybody in, and I would like do everything, and I'd be like, okay, you're going to bring this, I'm going to make this, and we would all do it. Kind of communal family style. Yep. Saturn in Aquarius is about that. It's about that. Specifically where you would move, I mean, that's the other thing, is when you have a really strong Venus transit, and right now, Micah, Jupiter is going to come back and it's going to be conjunct your Venus. So that tells me that you have an opportunity that's probably going to pop up here around the end of August, Jupiter on your Venus, highlighting your 4th house, where you have a new opportunity to go and live with somebody who might have land, they want to build together, they want to share food, things like that. The idea of moving to Atlanta, I have family there, I do love the food. It's got to be somewhere where you have friends, Venus and Aquarius, and somewhere where you love the food. You have to. But Venus and Aquarius is about shared resources, sharing. You might want to look at your astrocartography, pull up astro.com, see what lines that you have going through there. That's something that I would look at. Hopefully that was helpful. You'll have to let me know where you land. I'm going to bop on over here. Now it looks like the next we have is Lindsay, and then we're going to talk to Ms. Thompson. So thank you guys for being patient. I appreciate you guys being patient with me. This is the first time we have done charts like this live, so it's kind of wild because I sit here and I do this all day talking to people for like an hour at a time. So let's go ahead and open up Lindsay's question. I'm going to pull this up for you right now. Okay, so Lindsay, January 29th, 1988, another Aquarius. 11:04 a.m. And that's in England. Learn more about Uranus approaching my ascendant. What I can do to prepare. That's a fun transit. Okay, so SWIND. All right, let's get into it and let's see what your chart says. So January 29, 1988, 11:04 a.m. Cool. All right, so let's pull your chart up. So the question that she had was, she wants to learn more about Uranus approaching her ascendant. Those of you guys who have a Taurus rising, pay attention, pay attention. So what is Uranus? Uranus is rebellion, what's unconventional, what's different, what people don't see coming. So whenever you have a Uranus transit, it's about expecting the unexpected, right? So what we want to look at, number one, is Uranus crossing your ascendant, making any other aspects to planets in your chart? And also, what do we need to know about your ascendant? Well, Taurus rising is, what do you value? What pleasure do you get? How do you experience beauty? What tastes good? What smells good? How do you show your Venusian qualities? You know, Taurus rising and Libra risings, being ruled by Venus, a lot of it deals with relationships, aesthetics, how you look, how you dress, your makeup, your hair, and what you value. Okay, that's what you need to know. So Uranus crossing into your ascendant, and your ascendant specifically is at a 17, so it's a Leo degree, tells me that you're going to change your hair. And I've seen lots of people with Uranus crossing their ascendant, if they're a Taurus rising, radical hair changes, different colors, different cuts. Some are going for more organic, natural, earthy, where they want to go more natural. They're using natural dyes. Some people are opting for dreads. Other people are just like, I don't want to dye my hair anymore. There can be just more of like a rebelliousness and something really kind of different, because Uranus is different. Taurus is what's natural. So you might be like, I'm only using organic products or whatever. Uranus on your ascendant physically will manifest also as you really needing to pay attention to your nervous system. Like your nervous system, you can feel like you're constantly jittery and all you're doing is like, you know, it's like you're on Red Bull all the time, but you're not. You really want to support your nervous system. I recommend doing that through cell salts. Look into getting some cell salts. You can find them on Amazon. You can find them all over the place. So I personally feel like there is a need to integrate herbs and natural foods, natural living into your life to help you deal with this. What's unusual is, like I said, Saturn's in a square to Aquarius all year. So Uranus on your ascendant squaring Saturn means like you're rebelling against certain friends. Your friends are like, what's going on with you? You're totally different. You're not acting like yourself. Why are you going off and wanting to be all into this like weird futuristic hippy dippy shit? Why are you wanting to get your nose pierced? Why are you, you know, kind of going your own way? People are going to have a hard time resonating with you, right? You're just going to be different in some way. And Saturn is actually the ruler of your 10th house. So I can see this manifesting as being like, you know, part of you really wants to shave your head and have a mohawk, but you know, you have like a job at work where you have to be more presentable. So it really is manifesting as the traditional Saturn square Uranus, is like what you feel like you need to be out in the world, and the professionalism, especially with Saturn going back into your 10th house, and how that affects your appearance, and feeling like there is like this sense of being torn between two identities. For you also, because your chart ruler is Venus, Venus is located natally in your 12th. So it tells me that you don't want to feel like you have to have two separate lives. You don't want to hide your true authentic self. You don't want to hide who you are. I would say pay really close attention, because this tension is going to build a little bit more when Mars and Venus go into Leo and it squares your ascendant and it opposes Saturn, where then you're going to have issues with authority figures. You're going to have issues with bosses. You're going to have issues with parents. You're going to have issues with family members, where other people are going to be like, what's wrong with you? Why are you acting so different? Fly the freak flag, baby. That's the best thing I can tell you, is keep flying that freak flag, because I feel like it's about coming to your most authentic self. We don't want to repress the need to be different and independent and unconventional with Uranus on the ascendant, because it'll short circuit, and in a way you can have all kinds of nervous system issues, or you can have breakdowns, or you can have accidents. You really want to be careful with Saturn, especially actually when planets are in your 3rd. So you kind of already had that happen. So that's already clearing out. So that's good. So you're moving a little bit more smoothly. And I think you're also going to find that there's maybe some friction with romantic partners and things like that coming up in July. So as planets go into the fixed signs, outer planets, like next year, you're going to feel this even more. So kind of dealing with the authentic self now. Relocations can happen too. When Uranus is on your ascendant, you go to different places. Lots of changes with values, lots of tension in relationships, lots of internal right now. Make it external, okay? I'm going to give you the okay on this. If something's a problem, make it bigger. Don't deny the problems. Don't withhold that information. There is a need to actually process it. And I would say, because you are a Taurus rising, you're slow to make changes. You're slow to make shifts. You're slow to come into your own, but slow and steady wins the race. With Uranus on your ascendant, I feel like there's no way around this. You're going to have friction with friends. It's going to happen. So rather than avoiding it and letting it be a bigger problem down the road, make it a big problem now, right? And with Saturn in your 11th house, it can be like issues where you're like, there's social issues, there's bullshit that's going on social media, there's political things that you don't agree with that friends are supporting, and you're going to be like, how can you support this? I'm not encouraging conflict. I'm more encouraging looking at these situations and really reevaluating, are these people really my friends? And people might think you're overreacting. I don't think so. If your rising sign's at a 17, make art. Make something creative. Do something creative. Find a way to express yourself and find an outlet for this, so you don't feel like you're doing all kinds of like drama, right? Hopefully that's helpful. I would say, like, give yourself something that's going to be authentic and different, and something that's going to give you the ability to feel like you can be kind of punky in your own way. Like, I'm not going to encourage you to go and get a tattoo or pierce your nose or anything like that, but do something different that's going to give you that kind of freedom, that rebelliousness back. If you need to do something crazy with your hair, so be it. Okay, so I'm going to move now to Thompson. It says Yusavidi. I know that person is in here. Let me know. Also, if you're into acupuncture, herbs that are going to support your nervous system, please do that. It'd be really helpful. Cell salts, I would really look into cell salts. I think that can be really helpful. Okay, pink hair it is. When I had Uranus on my moon, it's different than your ascendant, but when I had Uranus on my moon, my hair was like blue, pink, orange, purple. I shaved the whole side of my head. Like, I have really thick hair, so I had dark, long hair, and I shaved the whole side of my head, and I would flip it over when I wanted to be presentable, and I'd flip it the other side when I wanted to be a badass. I also got my septum pierced, so I would flip it up and I'd flip it down. So things that you can you can kind of change. Here we go. Thank you, Maria. Okay, so I'm going to pull up Maria's chart. She's the last one for the night. Thank you guys for staying, watching, and checking this out. Hopefully this is helpful. You're learning more about astrology, more about my practice. If you like my style of reading, check out my links below. Like, comment, subscribe. You can find my website. I am booked out through July. So usually I'm booked out about 2 months at a time. So if you want to have me look at your chart, I do half-hour readings, full-hour readings, natal, synastry, all kinds of stuff. Check it out. You can see that. I also do weekly videos, so you can kind of get a feel for what's going on in the cosmos. And pretty soon, I think I'm going to start a study club, and I keep talking about this, but I think I'm actually going to do it. So stay tuned for that. All right, so let's go ahead and pull up Maria's 12/12/87 at 12:12 a.m. Holy cow, look at all that numerology. 12/12/87. And that was at 12:12 a.m. in West Palm Beach. All right, so let's pull up your chart here. Give me just a second, and we'll get this going. All right, Virgo rising. Similar stuff as what I was talking about with, who was that? With the tarot, starlight readings, kind of similar to that. Okay, so you've got a Virgo rising, Virgo moon, sun in Sagittarius. So what is your question, my dear? Let me know what your question is. Do you have questions about a certain aspect in your chart? Do you have questions about a particular situation in your life right now? What's going on? Thank you for being patient and waiting. I know this took a little bit of time, but I really want to make sure I thoroughly answer your guys' questions as I go through this. So let me know what your question is while I have a drink of my wine because it's after hours. How's everybody doing in the chat? We got people that are watching. You guys are learning all about astrology and stuff. So let me know what your question is. Otherwise, I'm just going to talk to you about what I think is most prominent in your chart. I will tell you, as a Virgo rising, though, you got some stuff happening. That eclipse was conjuncture midheaven. Changes going on at work, perhaps. Closing things up. A heads up on a move. Okay, cool. So here's the deal. You got a lot of planets in your 10th, which is putting more of a focus and emphasis on your career. Doesn't mean that it has to be that, but, you know, like I said earlier, you might want to go back and listen to what I said about the Starlight Tarot. Having, you know, eclipses and things moving through your 3rd house or your 4th house and your midheaven, it affects your ascendant and your 7th house. So it's like home, work, relationships all change at one time, right? The wheel turns. So moving, you just had an eclipse that was hanging out in your 5th house. So that eclipse basically could have brought up, okay, time to go, looking for somewhere else. I got to find somewhere else. I don't like where I'm living. I'm not totally crazy about the people who I'm living by, perhaps. And then also the squares that are happening to Neptune in your 7th house. Movement happens when you have a really strong Mars transit. So to me, it seems like movement is going to be more so likely when Mars is probably on your moon. So that's looking, actually you might find something that you really like unexpectedly the end of July going into the beginning of August. Okay, JLo, I'll look for you. I'll get you last. Don't worry. I did not see that, but that's because PayPal is taking its sweet ass time tonight. Okay. Yeah, there's a bunch of people actually. So we've got JLo, Rosa Perez, and Sage. So I'm going to shut it down, guys. I'm going to tell you right now, no mas. No mas. I appreciate it, but thank you, J-Lo. We will get to you. So it'll be J-Lo, Rosa, Sage. Thank you, guys. Just letting you know, anything that comes on from here on out, I will be issuing refunds, but I will be back, and we will be back in the next week or so. We'll do tarot. I'm going to try to alternate, do tarot and then do astrology, because this is really helpful. But going back to this, look for this the end of July, beginning of August. You might find a place that you really like when Mars, the ruler of your third house of movement, is conjunct your moon. This also tells me there can just be some like uncomfortableness in where you're living, anxious, revolving around, moving and movement. But I think it's going to be good for you to move. I feel like if you don't move then a time when you are likely to move is going to be when Venus moves into your third house. You find something, it might cost a little bit more. This will be in October. And then another time when you could move, and this is probably one of the better times if you're not going to do it at the beginning of July, is actually going to be mid to the second half of November, when the Sun, Mars, and Mercury all come and they reenact those degrees of the eclipse. Now, I know there's also going to be a new moon eclipse that's happening around December 3rd, so it's going to be one of these times. So it'll either be the beginning of July, it'll be that time that I saw, I think it was just in October, or it's going to be in December. It'll be one of those times. Keep in mind also, if you move too soon or if you move too quickly, there could still be another move at the end of this year. So you want to move into a space that's actually going to work. And yes, you have an opposition to your sun. Part of what's going on was that eclipse was just an opposition to your sun. So it was at 19 degrees, which makes me feel like there's an ending of where you're living. Sun rules the 12th house. Trying to think about where you could be moving. It's trying to send you into a different direction. So realize that when there's a new moon in opposition to your sun, certain situations end because they have to end. Why? Because it's trying to get you to think about work. So something about a retrograde in opposition to your sun kind of makes me feel like your head is spinning because you're like, I got to move, but there's so many other things that are going on. It's trying to get you to focus on your career. That's more my question, is what's going on with your career. A north node on your midheaven is projecting you out into the world. It's very karmic because it's a nodal eclipse. It's on your midheaven, so you're being seen. It's a time to reevaluate your relationship with your career. It's a time to reevaluate relationships in general, which seems very confusing. Being that the north node is dancing in your midheaven and actually moving now into your ninth, it's, do you want to move to another city? Do you want to move to another country? How can you start making your work digital or international? How can you interact with people at a distance? What do you need to learn to be able to more fully support your career? Remember, Gemini rules your 10th house, and the north node's in the 9th, so it can be going and learning something. So that can be really important to kind of help expand into your career further. Where is it that you're thinking about moving to? Dating is iffy, just because all these planets are currently in the 10th house squaring off with Neptune. It means like you don't feel like there's any movement in the moving department, the relationship department, or work. But that's not the focus right now. You want to wait until maybe you get planets that are moving more so into, like, let's say Scorpio, and dating can get a little bit easier. So it does seem like after work and movement has kind of settled out a little bit, relationships can be easier in October. A lot of communication in relationships in November. And I believe that you've got some really yummy transits happening with Venus and Juno sitting in Sagittarius in October. Relationships are definitely going to shift. Juno is about relationships and partnerships. So when Juno comes into a conjunction with your Sun and Saturn and Venus, the end of October is a time to watch. It's almost like it's trying to reroute you. It's trying to get you to be in a different neighborhood, a different city, a different place, so you can meet someone, right? So be mindful of that. That's going to bring something. You've also got Uranus that's trining your Venus this next year. That's fun. Uranus is about innovations, things that are different, things that you don't see coming. So Uranus in your 8th, coming into your 9th, trining your Venus means that you're going to find people who are culturally different, diverse. They're from different places. Just got an email for an interview, job back in the States. I'm an expat for 5 years, dating, haha. Yeah, it's going to be about you. It's literally, I mean, it's literally going to be you probably moving somewhere else for work. And so, you know, if work and opportunities to relocate present themselves, take it, especially because Uranus making aspects to your Venus will still bring in all kinds of unusual people. But right now it's about work. Right now it's about work and how taking jobs allows you to relocate. That's all you need to care about. Relationships will get interesting next year when Jupiter fully moves into Pisces. You're not even going to have to wait that long, actually. It looks to me, because you've got Juno in the 6th in Pisces, probably you will, if you don't make a move by January, February, that's when you will have to move, and then you'll have a job change and you might meet somebody through work. Very, very, very strong for you, January, February. And then Jupiter moves into your 7th house and you're off to the races. It's pretty romantic at the beginning of the year. Hopefully that was helpful for you. Just looking at some of these people who have, sorry guys, there's weird stuff going on with the internet. I don't know what is going on. I'm just having to refresh stuff, so give me just a second. This is so weird. All my internet stuff is like totally locking up. Hopefully this works. So funny. The Saturn-Uranus squares. Ah! Okay. Hopefully this works. Let me know if you guys can hear me. If I can keep going with the stream, I will. I'm just trying to get this to work. Okay, so yeah, it's not. It is not working. Give me just a second, guys. Hopefully. Like my whole computer is freaking out. Oh man. Give me just a second, you guys. I'm gonna try to restart this. Not my computer, just my Windows. Give me just a second. Let me know if you guys are still in the chat. Yeah, okay. Give me just a second, guys. Give me just a second. Hold on, I'm gonna try to restart this. There's some weird stuff going on with my computer. Unfortunately, I might have to cut the stream, as much as I hate to do that, and I wanted to be able to get to these last couple of people. I don't know if that's going to happen because my laptop is not allowing me to even start it over. So give me 1 second. Let's see if I can save it. I have never seen it do this before. Gotta love Mercury squares. Let's see. Bummer. Yeah, so, what? It's not letting me do that. It's not even letting me restart it. At all. My whole computer's freaking out. Yeah, even when I hit. Okay, let's see if that works. Hold on. It's like all like the cells were all moving around and everything. It's very weird. Bummer. Let me see if I can hop on my phone. Hold on a second. Maybe that'll work. Go into my account, see if I can watch this. My channel. Maybe this will work. I can do it this way. I don't really need my laptop. Come on, come on, come on. Here, you want this? See if we can troubleshoot that. I've never seen my computer do that before. Let's see if I can get my channel to work. And if I can't get you guys for whatever reason, I apologize. Then I will be refunding whoever did not get their reading. I hate to do that, but if I can't get this to pop up, then we're not really gonna have any option. So let's see if I can get this open. There we go. All right. So I said, sorry, that's the Plutonian in the chart. I can see your guys' comments now. So let me bounce back. Who has not been given their reading? I apologize. I don't have a way of getting through to my laptop and being able to look at this. So I'm not going to be able to pull up everybody's info that I had before. But I believe we had at least 2 people left. So if you guys want to hop on the chat and let me know. I'm looking at the live chat. No, they totally do. They do feed off of each other. Okay. Just got an email for an interview. Join back the stage. Da, da, da. Thank you. Okay, so who else was next? I know there was a couple of people. Sage, I know you were there. Who else was there? J-Lo. Okay, and then wasn't there another one? Sage and J-Lo. Okay, Sage, can you give me your birth information? I'm going to plug this in. And then J-Lo, you can send that too if you want. Sorry, you have to do it in the chat. Or Rose. So J-Lo and Rose, you guys want to give me your info? I'm going to start plugging this in. Just let me know and I'll put your guys' info in. Cool. Let's see if we can get this fixed. September, okay, so September 1st, 1995. So I'm going to do Sage and then I'll get to you, Rose. September 1st, 1995. And that was at 6:18 a.m. in Ventura. Ventura, California. It's pretty there. I've spent a lot of time there. Santa Paula. I like going to Santa Paula, kind of near Ventura. We are, Veronica, but we are already done for the night, so you'll have to check us back next Friday. We'll do tarot readings, and then the Friday after that, we'll probably be doing live readings again for astrology, but we are closed for the night. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's look at you, Sage. Let me pull my video up here so it's going to be easier for me to see. So it was Sage and Rose. And also Jacqueline too, I see you as well. So let me know your info, please. Okay, let's go and find my live readings. Okay, cool. We're back in action. Awesome. We will be back. Don't worry, I promise. Okay, this is so much easier now. All right, so Sage, let's look at your info. So you got a Virgo rising, Virgo sun, and you also have your moon in Scorpio. So what's going on for you? What questions do you have for me? What can I answer for you, Sage? Can my chart tell me when, if I'm meant to publish books? I write in my free time. I want to work on my stories full time, then publish next year. I feel pressured to pursue more logical career choice. My first would be pursue writing. I go back to college this fall, but I'm tempted to drop. Okay, so publishing, good question. This is interesting. Why are you putting a focus and an emphasis on publishing? Well, you've got your moon and your north node and your Pluto all in the third house, which is writing, storytelling, communicating, talking to people. You also have, for publishing, that's your ninth house, that's Mars. So something must be getting triggered with your Mars. Pluto is squaring your Mars. It's saying, got to make the time, got to get it going, got to make it happen. When you have a really strong transit to Mars, ruler of the ninth house, which is education and publishing, you feel like you're being pushed to do one or the other or both. This is also Saturn square Uranus in your chart, where Saturn in your sixth is about time management and whether or not you feel like you have time to go to school, work, and or write, and or publish. Being that the North Node is in the third, conjunct Mars, I do believe that there is an importance, a focus, and an emphasis in being able to build. It's on the cusp, so technically it's in the second, but it's on the cusp of the third, ruled by Venus, Venus in the first. When would be a good time to publish a book? We want to see something like when there's a positive aspect to Mars. And right now there isn't a positive aspect to Mars because Pluto is squaring. So you feel like you want to do it because it brings you pleasure, you enjoy it, you have fun doing it, all of that stuff. So it depends on how far along you are in that process with what you've written. So part of me wonders, like, if I give you a date realistically, are you going to have enough to put it out there? Because Pluto's going to keep squaring your Mars for a while. Also, Mars in the second house, ruler of the ninth, is you need an agent or somebody to help you sell it, or there needs to be some incentive because Mars rules your eighth house. You need to find somebody who might help you actually get a publishing deal, or maybe finding a publishing agent to help you get it sold. And I think when Saturn or Jupiter is trining your Mars, you start to see that happen. Jupiter in your chart is the ruler of the fourth, so I would say you might want to find an international publishing house, or maybe even a publishing agent that's international that might work not just in the States but in other places to help you get this sold. So a time that can be good would be something like when Venus is conjunct Mars. That'll be an interesting time right around the beginning of September. I feel like that's finding somebody to help you do this though, because even though Venus is conjunct Mars, it's still square Pluto. So there still is more writing that needs to be done, or you need to find somebody or find a woman, or, it can be that you publish it yourself. It may not be the way that you want to go, but you can do self-publishing. Let's see. So when you have a positive Mars transit, Mercury is going to go retrograde over your Mars or near your Mars. So that's going to be whether or not something's ready, whether or not you need to get illustrations, art for a book, things like that, or somebody who can help you sell it. I have a feeling when Mercury and Mars and the Sun come together conjunct your Mars and it's trining Jupiter, one of the positive times you could do this would probably be somewhere around the end of October. But even then, I would actually push this further, and I would say something like when Saturn is coming into a trine with your Mars, it would be even better. So that looks to me like There's more strength here, spring of 2022, the end of March of 2022. I think that's a better time. It all trines Mars, and it's also making squares to your North Node in your 9th, and it's trying to get you to publish internationally. So that's definitely a better time. Hi, Rosa. I see you. Don't worry. I see you. I'm going to look at your question in just a second. So, Sage, let me know. You go back to college this fall, but you're tempted to drop out. I mean, Saturn square Uranus, I would just say be careful, because it's going to come into a square with planets that you have in Scorpio too. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying, like, you know, Mars conjunct the North Node is you got to do it, but something about education, even self-education, editing, the writing process, the publishing process, doing the legwork, and really learning the bigger picture when it comes to what you teach. If you decide to drop out and you feel like you still couldn't swing it or you couldn't make it happen, you may find yourself going back to school when Jupiter comes into your 9th house. Equally, that's also a really good time for publishing. So a great time for publishing may actually be in mid-2023 when the North Node and Jupiter are conjunct in the 9th. That can also be a time when you graduate. Yeah, so, you know, you got to weigh those options and really ask yourself. There's plenty of time. There's multiple times. That's a great time for publishing too. So if you're going to drop out, make sure you have a plan and you have somebody to help you with the process of getting something sold or representing you, and try to sell it internationally or do some kind of international publishing. Okay, hopefully that's helpful. Let's go ahead and pull up Rosa. I see your question, and I'm going to take Jacqueline first because she paid first. So let me pull her information. So we've got 2 more people left. So it's 423.75. And that's at 9 a.m. Is that an exact time or is that an estimate? Jamaica Hospital. Is that in Queens? Let me know. Jacqueline, is that in Queens? You're welcome, Sage. Thanks, Rosie. I'll be with you soon. Don't worry. Exact. Okay, cool. Virgo, okay, so we've got Gemini rising, if this is correct, 9 a.m., April 23rd, 75. Does that look right to you? Have you looked at your chart before? It should be. So that gives me a Taurus sun, Gemini rising, moon in Libra. So, any aspect you see that can help the collective and me? That's a good question. That's just so sweet of you. Collective, interesting with all this energy you got going on in your 12th right now, huh? I mean, Gemini rising, you know, Mercury retrograde in your 12th house. You've also got an eclipse that just happened in your 12th house, and you've got the North Node that's been dancing on your Venus in the 12th house. That's the collective. How you're giving love to the collective, how you're helping people, working through karmic love matters, things of that nature. The fact that the North Node just transited your Venus is a lot about goddess work, ritual, devotion to Venus, taking time to sit and meditate and connecting with the divine feminine, you know, working with flowers, working with writing poetry, writing music, writing love letters to the collective, to future soulmates, to people that you may not have connected with yet. You know, Venus, whenever it's in the natal 12th house, is the mark of a soulmate, and it means that there are multiple people you meet in this lifetime that you have to connect with, and you may have this vision that's like, I'm in love with everybody, but how do I get close to people? Especially because your Venus is actually in opposition to Neptune. So it's this feeling of like, if I'm going to perpetually be in a state of sometimes being on and off with people, or not always being able to have love, but having love for everybody, like that's the way out. So I really like I really like your enthusiasm with like what you can do for the collective. That's really nice. One aspect that I would say is the North Node transiting your Venus. You know, the North Node is very unexpected. It's magical. It's mystical. It can bring somebody in who is from a past life. It can bring somebody in from a different culture. Right now, it seems very confusing with the retrograde, but I think when that stuff shakes out, you're actually going to find that it might align you with a soulmate, especially because transit Saturn in your 9th house is trining your Venus, ruler of your 5th house. So there can be a lot of like reflecting on, well, what does my heart want? What do I need for love and relationships? How can I grow with a partner? How can I experience more playtime? So there's this shift happening with your perspective on relationships, right? South Node transiting Neptune, which is the ruler of Pisces, but in your case, it could manifest as like job changes, changes to your schedule, changes with your routine, getting more in tune to what your body needs, what's going on digestionally for you, whether or not you should be eating certain things or not eating certain things, drinking certain things or not drinking certain things. That transit of South Node on your Neptune is about removing things that make you sick, removing cloudiness, removing weird spiritual symptoms. So that's interesting. And also the transit nodes are coming into a square with your Mars, ruler of the 11th house. It's making you aware of your goals. It's pushing you further into the direction that you need to go to be more aware of your goals. Jupiter's on your midheaven, so it's about expanding your enthusiasm, helping you go deeper into what's going to be some career changes, helping you go deeper into relationships, trying to get you out of the world, like out there and interacting with people. You know, 4th house moons, they get comfortable sometimes staying at home. But what you've got going on is Saturn trining your moon, Saturn trining your Pluto, wants to bring you closer to a divine union. For your single self-love, yeah, not for long, girl. All it takes is one really strong Jupiter transit and somebody shows up. So not only is Jupiter coming into Jupiter is squaring your nodes. It's putting you out into the world. But Jupiter will square your Venus next year, which is going to be really interesting because that's really going to push you into a relationship. You might meet somebody who it feels like true love. They may be younger than you because it's the 5th house. There may be some emphasis on children, whether you decide if you want children, whether they have a kid, somehow younger people or a younger person can come into your life. One other thing I would say also is just like that Jupiter is trining your Saturn. And it will really trine your Saturn next year. So it's going to strengthen your home base. It's going to strengthen your ability to nurture, right? So right now, Jupiter trine Uranus is sudden changes of fate, sudden changes going on with your love life, sudden changes going on with your creativity. Like something really big is going to shift. And I think anybody who's got, you know, Venus in opposition to Neptune, there is some aspect of them always having love at a distance, or there's some aspect of them like keeping somebody apart, or like going back and forth, or having long distance love, or associating love with like separation, or losing oneself in love, or like people come and go. That can be really a marker of creativity for you. Baby factory is closed. It won't rule out that you won't meet somebody who has a kid or somebody who is just younger. So just keep that in mind because it's the 5th house. But Saturn trining your Pluto, trining your Venus right now, that makes me feel like you're reaching for bigger love. He has to bring his own. He might. Careful what you ask for. Be careful what you ask for with Jupiter trine Uranus, because that will bring a very unconventional, different person who's either younger or they're going to have a kid. And Jupiter sextiling your Sun and Mercury. So it's also like helping you expand with friends on the internet, talking to people online, making lots of new friends, really kind of keeping the positivity and the momentum. That 29 degrees that you have on your midheaven to me is very fascinating because that's like there is some karmic stuff going on with your career in this lifetime where when Saturn goes over those degrees or when Jupiter goes over these degrees, there's a breakthrough. So recently there was a breakthrough when Jupiter went into Pisces somewhere around the beginning of May. It's going to come back and it's going to hit those degrees again. So that's going to be pretty active here the end of July. And then you'll see this again at the end of the year when Jupiter conjuncts again in December. Breakthroughs for your career. Jupiter does represent husbands. It's the ruler of your 7th house. So through career changes or some kind of going out into the world, you may actually meet somebody. I believe you will with Saturn trine your Venus also and Jupiter square your Venus. Look out for karmic love stuff and all kinds of things becoming exceptionally clear, especially around the holidays, the end of December,
when you have a Venus retrograde in your 8th house, and it's going to make aspects to your Juno, because I do see you settling into a relationship. I do. But watch out, you're having a reverse nodal return, changes of fate with your schedule, changes of stuff going on with your career, changes going on with your day-to-day routine. That seems to be a real emphasis in your chart. Hopefully that was helpful for you. Let's move to Rosa. Rosa, thank you for being patient. I believe this is the last one. You guys will have to let me know. Let me go ahead and go and build out this chart really quick. All right, so we've got you here 5/14/66. And that was at 5:30 a.m. And Lakeport, California. Taurus rising, Sun in Taurus, Moon in Pisces. You gave me excellent info, but I didn't receive the recording. Please send it. When did we do the Zoom call? April. Ruh-roh. Check your spam. See if it's in your spam. It should have gone out. If it didn't, let me know. We'll have to see if I still have it. But I see you here. So what is your question for me, Rosa? What would you like to know? Had a dream with the number 908 and I started to search the 8th and the 9th house. Do you have a question about your chart? I'll go through and check my Zooms. It should have gone through because I usually don't delete things. So I'll pull up my Zoom either later tonight or tomorrow in the morning and see if I can find that for you. It should have gone through. So you have questions about a relationship. All right. Well, for Tauruses and Taurus risings, you know, the big news is Uranus is on your ascendant. And it's in hard aspect to Saturn. So if we look at your chart, right now Uranus is on your ascendant, squaring off with Saturn in the 10th and coming into oppositions with planets that you have in the 7th. So there's going to be this power struggle going on between you and relationships this year and next year, and who is in charge or who is not in charge. So when Uranus sits on the ascendant, people can see you as like you kind of acting erratic, kind of being all over the place. You're in, you're out, you're there, you're back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. This is a part of a long-term transit because you have Neptune in opposition to your Mars and also your Sun. So this tells me that over the next couple of years, as a result of Saturn coming into a square with planets in your 1st house and planets in your 7th house, there's going to be power struggles revolving around who's in control. So for present relationships and future relationships, there's a lot of stuff changing here, like big time. Some of the bigger changes are actually going to come the beginning of the year. So I would look for that. But what you want to look for is what's going on with your Mars. So actually, we've got planets coming into Leo, where it's going to square your Mars. So hot spots are going to be like the first 10 days of July. Then again, you're going to see some hot spots are actually going to be the first 10 days of August, where there's friction about home, domestic stuff, you know, where you're living, where they're living, whether you guys come together or not. It's very important that you pay attention to these timelines, especially if you're living with someone. So it makes me wonder, you know, are you trying to find a domestic relationship where you guys can live together? Are you currently living together and is it not working? Is somebody unwilling to move for somebody or make changes going on in their home life for another person? Because usually that's what manifests here. I don't really see any hard changes in relationships yet. You know, there's going to be some bigger changes, I think, when when the South Node gets into Scorpio, there's nothing definitive that necessarily needs to end. You know, definitive endings. There's endings and beginnings closer to the end of this year, actually. There's going to be a new moon happening in your, well, several of them, but there's going to be that next eclipse that we're going to have that's going to be in Sag happening in your 7th house. So that's a renewal phase. That new moon eclipse coming at the end of November, beginning of December, that's a renewal phase. Not living together, not committed, twin flame. I mean, there you go. Like, if there's no commitment in terms of the relationship or moving towards domestic union, there's going to be a lot of back and forth. The one thing I will tell you is, like, when Saturn and Jupiter come into the 11th house and it squares off with stuff, if partners don't share your same goals for the future, because Jupiter rules your 8th house of like intimacy and Saturn rules your 10th house of public stuff, you're not going to be able to be in a relationship where you can't go public next year. Like, it's not going to work. Just that conjunction alone, it's not going to work. But that conjunction alone, squaring your ascendant, squaring your 7th house, that tells me, like, somebody's in a fucking relationship and they're not leaving the relationship. Is that the case? Is somebody married? Is there something going on where it's like you guys can't go out and, like, you know, talk about the fact that you're together? Is somebody unwilling to leave their current relationship that they're in, or somebody that they're living with? Sticky stuff. Thank you, Lynn. I love all of your little emojis. Those are super cute. Those are emojis that I've never even seen before. Maybe they just look different on YouTube. Where are you, Rosie? I want to get to the bottom of this. This is the juiciest reading yet of the whole bunch. You know, one thing I'll say about people who have Taurus and Scorpio planets being activated in this next year. As Saturn and Jupiter come into squares with each other, you know, or excuse me, as Saturn comes into squares with Taurus and Scorpio, it's about defining the difference between, you know, being friends or being committed. Okay, so you're not in other relationships. So, I mean, you need to define this then. But my family is doing schooling. I mean, one thing I'll tell you is there seems to be some block in the domestic stuff. So whether that's you have family that's living with you, kids you have to take care of, family that's staying with you, you know, there's some block going on in the home life. If you can work through the home life blocks and also discuss this with another person and talk about ways of making time to build towards the future, especially if Saturn comes into these squares. Oh, you're keeping a secret. That's what it is. Lots of Taurus have stuff going on like that. It's because they got, you know, they got Saturn in their 10th house. So they're trying to focus on their career and kind of putting up a good image, but they're not talking about what's going on in their private life. So here's what I would say. This comes to a pretty insane pivotal moment. And this is going to be from about March of 2022 roundabout till, let's say, June or July. I know that's a big timeline, but I'm looking at the nodal transits too. So the end of March is definitely like super holy cow, like shit or get off the pot. It's like, are we on the same page or not? And if you guys don't have the same goals, if you're not moving towards what this says, which is, you know, actively, socially being together, being a committed relationship, committing, ex-husband still involved in my life, afraid of his reaction. Can't do that. The first house, the 7th house is your first husband, by the way. So when you've got planets going into the 11th house, part of your goal is going to be about growing and being able to grow into a relationship that you're not just calling a friendship, right? It's not like, oh, that's my friend. Like, you have to, both of you guys have to be willing to talk about this out in the open. But I don't see anything definitive happening, I think, until right around end of March, let's say through about July, when the South Node conjuncture Neptune. If a relationship's going to fizzle out, it's going to be when the South Node conjuncture Neptune and the North Node and Uranus are on your ascendant. And that's when it's like you're not going to be okay with keeping everything a secret. You want to go out with it. And guess what? Yeah, if you've got all that Scorpio in your first house, your first husband's a psycho. Sorry, but I mean, like, that's crazy. Scorpio at 11, Neptune in the South Node. It means like, yeah, you feel like you have to hide things because he gets crazy and he'll like make up scenarios or whatever. You got that Pisces moon. You're too nice, Rosie. You're too nice. And right now, Venus, that's what you call him. I have all that Scorpio. I can say that stuff. But Chiron right now, you know, Chiron's on your Venus. Let's talk about that. Chiron on your Venus right now. So what that's bringing up is the need to heal and really uncover and start working out all of these wounds that you have revolving around needing to hide a relationship. It doesn't feel good, right? It doesn't feel good. So that's going to keep coming up as Chiron's dancing on your Venus. I feel like, you know, you're going to have to confront and start talking to the partner about this, but equally also your first husband starting in November. So get ready for that. When all the planets go into Scorpio and it squares off with Aquarius, and that's when the wheels turn. Things really start to change. All Tauruses really need to be focused on and be aware of right now is like they need to let go of certain old relationships in order to embrace the new one. Like that seems to be really important. And with Saturn, you know, being the ruler of your 9th and your 10th house, you want your authority back. So Saturn squaring off with a bunch of planets in your 1st house and your 10th house. Don't be afraid to take your authority back. Just watch out for conflicts with him in August. Personally, though, like I said, you don't really know the answer until about next spring. That's when you're going to know whether or not this is going to work. At that point in time, Uranus and the North Node and everything's in your 1st house. So next year is about you. It's not about your ex-husband. It's not about twin flame. It's not about any of that stuff. It's about you. What do you want? What do you need? Because, you know, Taurus in the 1st house, especially with the Sun and Mars and North Node, it's about going after what you want, being passionate, charging forward and like not taking no for an answer. So you're going to have some conflict with your ex-husband next year because of all those oppositions to your 7th house, which is your first marriage. Thankfully, it sextiles your moon. So that tells me you're going to have friends. People are going to be there to help you. They're going to be there to support you. You'll have friends that you can lean on. There will be groups of people that you can kind of connect to. Maybe you start having friends come and interact with you. You start integrating having friends over more. And like as you start having female friends over and building more of a social life and kind of getting used to having people over, you're starting to define your life. And then it doesn't seem so weird when you start having like romantic partners come over. So I would start there. Actually, you can do that now because Jupiter is in your 11th house of socializing. It's all sextiling your 1st house. So for Tauruses, it's new friends, meeting new people, collaborating with new groups, going out, meeting people in other places. You don't need to have them in your house yet, but this is just about kind of expanding on that. Well, your parents, I mean, this is the classic Saturn square, you know, your 1st house and your 7th house. You know, what your father says about who's in your space, what you're doing, who you're dating. It's more issues with dad than it is with anybody else. Jupiter on your moon will provide you with an opportunity to have more solid kind of union with your mom. So yeah, old school cultural values. I can definitely see that. What I would say is introducing people to mom first before dad, or kind of like getting mom to come around to the idea of meeting some of your friends first before dad. But Saturn square Uranus is like, you want to act out, you want to do things different. And, you know, your dad may not approve of you having kids and being divorced and dating. He may not, but that's Saturn square Uranus. So what's the answer? Integrating the old and the new, you know, maybe introducing people to your parents, but like really sorting and sifting through people and making sure they're a good match and then having them come over and have dinner with your family, right? So it's integrating Uranus, new partners, new friends into meeting your parents. No dating if they had their way. Well, tough shit. Tough shit. There's not really a lot you can do with this. With Uranus on your ascendant, you are going to have knockdown dragouts with people who don't allow you to have freedom. So because you need that freedom, Uranus is the ruler of your 11th house. You're becoming aware of your own personal goals and you're stepping away from family expectations. Best thing you can do is go out and socialize away from the house, and then slowly start introducing people to your mom and then kind of bringing people in slowly that way. Start with female friends. But I would say going to parties, interacting, doing things with people outside of the home, that's how you start that process of defining your life separate from your family, separate from your kids, separate from your ex-husband. Like you don't want to put a Taurus in a situation like this because then the bull gets angry with Uranus on their ascendant. And what's going to happen, because the first house is the body, you know, Uranus moving into your first house, all that pent up energy, if you don't have an outlet, you're going to start having nerve issues. You're going to start having all kinds of problems with your body, thyroid issues, problems with your throat, clearing your throat, losing your voice, right? And that's not good for a Taurus. That's not good for a Taurus, because you need your voice. So when you start having issues there, all kinds of stuff is going to start kind of manifesting for you physically. I have an older disabled daughter and they help me and won't if I date. Yeah, all hell breaks loose. I mean, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you that really the solution is to start leaning on friends rather than family. That's what Uranus says, ruler of your 11th house, changing your friends. Yeah. Like this is going to be a bigger problem next year when Uranus is conjunct your Mars, ruler. Technically, it's ruler of your 7th house. It means that other people can make you sick. Other people can make you sick. Then it's conjunct your Sun, ruler of your 5th house. And then you start rebelling against children and wanting to date anyway. Like, these things are coming. They are coming. I'm more concerned about your health issues, to be honest, because the first house is the body. So what can you be doing to give yourself freedom, right? Look for Uranus also sextiling your moon. Ruler of your 4th, time to have changes in the home, integrating new things in the home, wanting to get them used to just having, you know, female friends in the home. Start there. But also you need to go and do stuff away from the home, away from the family. You know, the Sun rules the 5th house, so men dominate your life, whether it's your father, male children, ex-husband, whatever. I think you're going to cut a lot of people out next year. Looking at your chart, I know you can't cut out your family. Yeah, health issues. I mean, thyroid issues, voice issues, communication issues. I mean, all kinds of stuff. All kinds of health issues. These are happening because there is no outlet for this energy. Cell salts, working with chrysocolla, working with anything that's going to open up the throat chakra, clearing out the throat chakra, helping you communicate. That's really going to help you. But if you wait until next year when Saturn exactly squares your nodes, like, you need friends to lean on. This is about building your social group first. So be mindful, that's more of what you need right now. Okay? Trying to travel without them knowing. Pisces moon. Gotta love the Pisces moon. Yeah. Yeah, you got a lot of planets in the 12th house too, so you'll be able to keep a lot of traveling private next year. You just want to be really careful because pictures will get you in trouble. So if friends are tagging you and stuff in social media and it's public, you'll get caught. All right, guys, that's been quite the evening. I hope that this was helpful, Rosie. I hope this was helpful. Thank you for everybody who tuned in, who watched. Hopefully this was helpful. You learn a little bit more about transits. You learn about more how my sessions work. If you like my reading, if you like my reading style, if you want to know more, check out my links below. Like, comment, subscribe to my channel. Every Friday I'm going to be doing this. So next Friday it'll be tarot. The Friday after that it'll be astrology. I'm going to alternate and see how it goes. Thank you guys who tuned in, who donated and invested in a little bit of time with me. If you guys want to book a reading with me, you are more than welcome to do so by checking out my website. I've got some openings left, I think, for the end of July, but I'm pretty much booking into August soon. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. No, the end of June going into July. Yeah, maybe it is August. I don't know. You'll have to check my website. It's hard for me to manage my schedule. Things are a little crazy right now. Thank you very much, JLo. I appreciate it. Thank you guys. And I will see all of you guys very soon. You have a very happy and healthy weekend. You guys take care. Bye-bye.